our 4 children. 3 of them went straight into the elementary school, and they've been to school with some of your children. Enjoyed their time at the elementary school. 4 of my children went through Pioneer. I taught at Pioneer. I had the pleasure of working at Pioneer and being given an opportunity in the district, so I've worked alongside some of you as colleagues as well. And education's been part of my life for at least 30 years since I've been here, and part of my time in England as well. I was a parent governor of a school in England and had the honour of running that school and enjoying and sort of experiencing all the difficulties and the challenges of trying to run a successful school district and trying to work within a sort of a budget and a community. And here I am as a taxpayer, sitting at home for 3 years as a retiree and enjoying life and sort of witnessing the struggles and saying, how can I be of service? What can I do to support? And I would have felt terrible by, I stood up at the town meeting in Bernardston and I said, we've got to support education, find ways to support our children and give them a future. And realising it's a sacrifice as a taxpayer, but I would have felt a sort of a real difficult moment if I'd have turned around and said to Patricia, yes, I've got a skill set, but I'm not going to help. And here's my wife saying to me, are you crazy? What are you going to do? But at the same time proud and saying, hey, go ahead and see how you can be of service, how you can support. So I'm not saying I have all the answers. I've got plenty to say, as people will know me for that. But I intend to listen. To listen to how I can help the towns, how I can help the students, and how we can help redesign education and provide a strong future. So happy to be here to join you all, and happy to sort of have people come to the school and see the great things that our children are doing. And I mean that respectfully. Having sat at home for 3 years and thought about what's school like these days and how difficult it is, I'm now experiencing it front and centre and seeing that the children want to be there. They want to learn. Yes, they have challenges and they have difficulties, but we need to be able to find solutions to that, and I'd like to be a partner at the table. So want to see you there. I would love to see you be at the school. Come around and share the experience with us, because it's a great time. Yeah. Easy for me to say that, but
yeah. Well, I remember the community day that you did. I forget what the title is for how parents look at it, but you had welcomed folks to come and quote unquote roam the halls,
right?
Which I did with a couple other folks, and it was really nice to do that and to really see the kids and the teachers, and met one of the psychologists. And so are you going to do that again, do you think, at some point?
I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's important for people to see us without it being a show. See us in the sort of natural setting, and come sort of experience that, and be a part of the classrooms and just sit and listen, and see how we're sort of making things work, and how the children are doing it as well. So the answer to it is as many times as we can. I think that's important, and also listening to what it is that you want to see as well. How you want to see that sort of experience in an educational setting. Because at the end of the day, our taxpayers, our people are sort of paying for it, and you want to make sure you get value. We want to make sure that we're spending wisely and we're fiscally accountable. And I know they're just words, but if you can get to the school and see it, if you can actually sort of join us on those moments, then you really do get to sort of feel and touch where our dollars are spent and where they're needed most. So I could speak all day about it, but I think the experience of actually being there as a partner is real critical.
first of all, a warm welcome
Yeah, thank you.
back
very
to
much.
Northfield and also to the community, and for inviting the community in as early as you did.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the select board if they have any questions, or
Yeah,
since
please.
you're meeting us as a body in a public meeting for the first time, so I'm going to ask the select board if they have any questions for you.
Mhm.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to welcome you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm so happy for the school.
Yeah.
And if there's anything you ever need from the select board,
Right.
don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
We're on your side.
Well, that's, I mean, if I can say that, I felt that right from day one. You know, it's easy for me to say that in a way because I've lived here. You know, I've lived in Northfield for 17, 18 years and then moved to Bernardston. Sorry about that, but we couldn't find a place to live.
I wasn't going to mention it.
But we're still part of the community, and
Yeah, of course.
yeah, it's wonderful. I know people, and I feel very comfortable with you and trust you. I think that's
Good.
and I want to sort of like feel the same back. And we might have difficult moments, we might have difficult conversations, but always feel that we can sit respectfully and find solutions. So and it's a great place.
Great.
When my children first went to the school, it was fabulous. My wife worked as a secretary there and a librarian, and it hasn't changed. You know, great people who are dedicated. So.
Nice.
Great.
Alex?
Mr. Troll, what are your long-term goals,
Personally, or
professionally and personally?
to find a way into working with the towns. I'm not saying as a principal. I'm just saying as a member of the community, to use the experience as a grandparent, as a parent, to help and support educational opportunities. And if I wasn't sitting here as the principal, I'd be sitting in Bernardston as, you know, at the town meeting. You know, I turned down something there to say, no, I'll be a principal to start. But stay active in the community. Yeah, I think I've had my 3 years of sitting on my backside, retired. So, yeah.
Jump back in.
Yeah, jump back in.
Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, Bernie.
I just want to thank you for stepping up. I mean, to get somebody with your experience and knowledge and sense of community that you felt in the past to step up in this role is, you know, I'm just want to say thank you.
It's lovely for you to say thank you. I'm recognising that it's not an easy role.
No.
I'm admitting that there's a lot of challenges, but it's helped by the staff. So, thanks.
Anything else? Great. Do you want to slide into enrollment numbers? Because I'm assuming we're talking about the district in general. I'm just looking at the...
And a word of warning. Jim, as he mentioned, stood up at the Bernardston Town meeting last spring and had something to say, and I thought, who is this man? He speaks so well, and I like his message. So it's not like he applied for this job. This was a reach out and saying, I found out who, Mr. Trill,
That's right.
could we reel you in here?
Yeah.
So, a word of warning about speaking up at,
Yeah,
we
that's
will
it.
recruit anywhere. We had a parent call up and complain, we had a parent call up with a challenge about transportation. And I found out she was a teacher elsewhere. And 3 weeks later, so we are recruiting anywhere we see someone great.
Who knew she was an excellent Fisher person, you know?
No
It
shade.
is, yeah.
So thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Enrollment. So I'm going to give you only the briefest of overviews because I took a look at the draft numbers that we would use for assessments, and they are not yet pristine, so I don't want to share them. But I can give you some big picture update. We are doing okay in terms of overall enrollment. I am a little hesitant to go too far out, but maybe we have stopped the enrollment decline. It appears that our overall enrollment is not only holding steady, but also increasing. And that is with that calamitous loss of so many 8th graders last spring. So even with that loss, we have more kids now than we did last year. That's a big picture. As a reminder, we count enrollment in different ways. There are the number of bodies sitting in district schools. Okay. There is what's called foundation enrollment, and that's used by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to calculate Chapter 78. And that's a different type of enrollment. That's the number of students for whom we are financially responsible. So that would include students who leave our district to go choice in elsewhere. And then there is the enrollment by which we calculate town assessments. And that enrollment is defined in the district agreement as the number of resident students in our district schools in the grades kindergarten through 12. So we don't count pre-K in the district agreement enrollment. So I just want to be clear, when I come back to you, when we come back to you with numbers for assessment purposes, we'll remind you there are multiple types of enrollment counts. Not ready to share the assessment counts. Those are also calculated. For the purposes of town assessments, we take a 5-year average of enrollment on October 1st and December 1st of the 5 fiscal years preceding the fiscal year for which the budget is being developed. What's terrific, as we saw last year with some of the trouble with our original enrollment numbers, is that 5-year average smooths things out. And so it would be unlikely that we'd see something really dramatic year to year because it's evened out over 5 years. So big picture, right now, we have more kids than we did last year.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the overall enrollment. We've had quite a few school choice students come in. So as we develop the budget, we'll be giving you the town assessment enrollment numbers.
And what did you say the dates were again, Patricia? October 1st
and December 1st. And that's not a DESI
count.
That is a district agreement requirement.
Oh.
That's how the assessment, that's the count required by the district agreement. And for folks who might not be familiar, the district agreement is the legal document that created the district and that governs how the district operates.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Mary.
Kids that come into the school system and then go to choice, we're still financially responsible for them? I mean, under your umbrella?
If they live in one of our towns,
Okay,
and they enroll with us,
you're right.
they're ours.
Oh, yeah?
If they then go choice out to Greenfield,
Okay,
for the foundation enrollment, we count them. For the district agreement assessment count, we wouldn't count them.
thank you. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure how that worked, but that makes
Okay.
sense.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm also going to look at the finance committee
Yeah.
too. Any questions from the finance committee on enrollment numbers?
District agreement. We had a committee a while back
Yeah.
Yeah.
that spent a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
and made some recommendations. Has there been any changes in the district agreement?
Not that have been voted on by the town. So as you know, the towns need to vote on any changes to the district agreement. The school committee did establish a subcommittee, the district agreement subcommittee, that met multiple times last year. And that work, we hit the pause button on that work because we were simultaneously doing the Warwick transition work. And it was, from a capacity perspective, I couldn't support both processes at the same time. So the district agreement subcommittee has reviewed the existing document, has reviewed the last version that was worked on, I don't remember how many years ago,
Can I
last group
Can
was
I just
working.
interrupt you for a second?
Do you want me to wait?
Well, we're going to get to that. I just wanted to make sure that were there any questions on. We actually have that on the agenda, and also I think for camera purposes, and
sorry.
for public meeting purposes, we're addressing the board. I know we're trying to do an inclusive meeting here, but when you turn around then the microphone, and as you guys well know, because I saw the setup over at the school, I'm like, okay, this is way more complicated than what we do over here. And you have more people. So I'm just going to ask that we address the board, so then it's all captured on camera for the folks at home, and the microphones work properly. But any other questions on fall enrollment update? Numbers. So that means December 1st is coming up, and you're going to have numbers based on that. Okay. And then, so does an email go out on that? I'm just trying to stay abreast of district updates this year.
We provide an enrollment update every month at school committee, but that enrollment is that enrollment includes kids who've choiced in, our Vernon tuition students. We would be sharing the student enrollment for purposes of budget development via the budget subcommittee.
Okay, and just for clarification purposes, so when you're reporting to the school committee, because I have heard the updates, that's basically a number, I'm going to call it a work, yeah, bodies in the district. Yep. So that's actually useful for our purposes too, just understanding as community members how many folks
and
we're
it's broken down
about.
by school and by grade. That includes kindergarten, and again, it includes school choice in and Vernon tuition in and out of district placements.
Right.
Oh.
So I think, well, I'm just going to look at the rest of the board. I think we're interested in both numbers, just as community members, understanding what it is that you and the school committee are working with, because those are the bodies in the seat.
Would you like us to send the monthly student enrollment update to the select board and the FinCom?
Yeah, I think that would be, okay. I know I'm trying to stay abreast of we got on the mailing list for the district updates last time, so I think that'd be helpful. Okay. And then I always like the piece of paper when I'm watching stuff on Facebook.
Maybe she could just send it to you and then.
Oh no, that's or to Andrea, and Andrea can send it to the board. Yeah,
we'll send it to all 4 towns.
Okay, great. Okay, FY24 budget cycle kickoff, calendars and parallel processes, major themes. So my perspective just over the last couple of years has been the kickoff always goes well, and it's a great opportunity for us to just, as we each have our different roles for the town and the district, to just figure out what those are, not figure out, but state what they are, and just kind of get the rest of the towns, plural, kind of locked and loaded on what our timelines look like. What I'm hoping to do tonight, based on the experience over the last couple of years when we got to the end of the cycle, I'm hoping we can take a quick look. I'm looking over at Michelle too, because I know she's the chair of the budget subcommittee. Is what I'm hoping we can do is talk about those key dates when we get into February and March, and aligning expectations, both for the finance committee, and I sit in on most of their meetings, so I'm not going to speak for them, but I just want to make sure that we've got all 3 groups kind of covered, and that way when we get to the end of the cycle, when we're down into the weedy details, that we all had that expectation right now tonight. Okay, so can we just look through
B?
Yeah,
Michelle, we brought this.
Oh, great.
We sent it, Andrea, if I may.
Oh,
we
I
sent
saw
it
that.
electronically. We brought this, and if I could invite Jordan and Michelle up to the table.
Great.
They will be.
Here we go.
Thank you.
11-2.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Is this the max or better one?
Hello. Okay, so Jordan, we should have done it. Did we do introductions with you before?
We did
I'm mixing up like all my Facebook live meetings and.
We did a virtual one. Because
Oh, that's right.
one of the
Okay.
where we were still doing remote meetings, so I had the pleasure of I think meeting most everyone.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jordan, you're the Director of Finance and Operations, correct?
Yep,
Is that the,
correct.
okay, and Michelle is, just for introductions and for folks at home, you're the chair of the Budget Subcommittee of the School Committee,
Correct.
and you're a longtime school committee member. So
No, I'm
No?
not a long time.
You're not? You just
No,
seem, maybe it's because
only
we're
my
in.
second year.
Oh, okay, we're in.
I used to attend with Lois all the time as chair of the finance committee for a while.
Oh, okay, okay. And then you and I are in other committees together too,
Yes.
so I'm mixing those up as well. Okay, and Raina, you're the chair. Do you want to kick everything off here in terms of what you guys are looking at for a calendar?
Sure.
And thanks for that.
So the subcommittee, the budget subcommittee has put together a draft calendar with sort of the milestones along the way, with our target needing to approve the budget, I believe, in February. Yep. So we, and those deadlines are sort of, we get those through policy and also just the budget timelines from the state, and also needing to meet your requirements for getting it on for the warrants for the town meeting.
Right.
So, for all 4 towns.
Right.
So, you know, we've kind of mapped out various subcommittee meetings, and then when we would meet as a group to review the budget, the public hearings, to provide the community with information about the budget process and where our priorities and what we've come together with, and then an official public hearing, I think tentatively scheduled for February 9th, and then the school committee would meet on February 15th to vote on the budget. So.
Okay. And the public hearing is literally where people go and speak to the details that are in the budget.
Correct. The public can ask questions and provide comments.
Can they also do that at the, it says budget hearing number 1, 2, and 3 in January. Can they also do it there as well? Okay,
Mhm.
leading up to the big,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that's all in January. Okay, and then February 9th, February 15th, and then I'm looking at our calendar.
For the budget dates for the school, I'm gonna have to revise it because it's different, it's based on the calendar.
Right, but for us, Monday, and for, I should say for the Finance Committee, Monday, March 6th, the Finance Committee finalizes the town budget.
Okay.
Correct?
That's,
Is that right?
that's right, when we're backing it up. I mean, they could do it sooner than that, but when we're backing up the dates, that's
Okay.
kind of when it has to be done by the end.
Okay. So that's normally when it happens, Lois, is at the beginning of March, is you're finalizing, the Finance Committee is finalizing the budget for Northfield, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then when we say PVRS budget certification to the town, is that just the standard formal email that indicates what the assessment is? And that's on March 15th. Okay.
No, I think that's when you have to get them, there's a letter that they send.
That's what I mean. It's
part of the-
it's a letter.
And it's part of the law. And
Part of the letter, yeah.
So that date comes out of that
Okay.
part of the process. Could come sooner, but I mean,
Right.
that's the
Cut
sort
off.
of date they have to have it
Yeah.
by.
Okay.
And that's the certification letter that says, this is your assessment.
Okay. So things wrap up basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the school committee in mid-February. And then things wrap up for the Northfield Finance Committee in early March. And then there's an expectation on the part of the Finance Committee to have the superintendent and the director of finance and operations, and I think we've done a joint meeting in the past, to kind of come full circle and say, okay, all of the big themes we heard tonight are now playing out in these specific details. But we're not necessarily meeting over the letter that's being sent, we're meeting over the understanding of how the big themes that we're talking about tonight translate into the details later on. And I'm looking at the Finance Committee because I think last year there was some, and I know Patricia was new too, and we also had a change in school committee chairs. So it's always helpful to bring all the expectations and make them explicit a few months in advance, so then we're not sitting there at cross purposes in March in any way, shape, or form. So is there an expectation on the part of the Finance Committee to have Patricia and Jordan come back to the Finance Committee in between the February 15th and March 6th? Because that's a short window. Because you usually have also the Franklin County Tech Superintendent come with his presentation. So I'm just noting this for the group because then the select board will do a joint meeting with the Finance Committee at that point whenever they come back. But I'm looking at the Finance Committee to acknowledge you want PVRS to come between February 15th and March 6th.
I think they usually come during the February budget hearings because February 15th is their vote. So once the 15th
Oh,
happens,
good
it's
point.
done.
Okay. All right. That's what
They
I'm
come
talking out
sooner than
loud.
that.
Okay. So at what point, when we're looking at the calendar, at what point are you expecting before the 15th? Then? In February?
There's a whole list of budget meetings nobody's signed up for yet. They haven't broken them up by department. So it'll be, they've got the 6th as a budget meeting day. They've got the 9th, I'm sorry, the 6th, the 5th, the 13th, the 27th. I think they start as early as January 23rd and 30th and January 9th. So they have a whole bunch of meetings in January and February for the Finance Committee budget hearings. We haven't scheduled anybody
Okay.
yet. Usually we send that out and town departments will tell you when they want to come, or Lois will invite them to a specific meeting
Okay.
when.
So this is great that I said it incorrectly because then I was corrected
Well,
live. No, but
Yeah.
live, I just want to, pardon my old project manager habits, I just want to make sure, so either Monday, February 6th, or Monday, February 13th, or Monday, February 20th, which is President's Day holiday.
Yeah, they have 3 meetings in January for budget hearings and
Right.
2 meetings in February for
Okay.
budget department hearings.
Okay, so I'm just going to look at the Finance Committee. Do you have any comments on the calendar and what you would like to see from PVRS in that time frame?
That's fine. Yep. Andrea and I have communicated on this schedule, and yes, this is fine.
Usually
We'll work toward it, do what we can.
Yeah, okay. But, so, I'm gonna look now at the PVRS, so at Patricia and at Jordan, that, because I know that's a tight time frame, and I remember Michelle's talked about this before with all the budget hearings. Is there an expectation or preference to come back earlier in February, or? Thanks, Patricia.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Okay, help me out here.
Okay, so Jordan, want me to?
Or in January,
Well, I mean, I was just
looking
thinking
for
that
specifics.
if there's an anticipation of the possibility of substantive change, I would think that, January 23rd or 30th might be more reasonable for everybody. Otherwise, if
Okay.
you push it really close to the vote date,
I agree.
it makes the document pretty much finalized, right? So
And it makes people get annoyed in a joint, which I've experienced in the last couple of years. So I'm looking
Yeah.
to avoid that,
I
quite
think
frankly.
it'd be more
Yeah.
substantive meeting if it was the January 23rd or 30th.
Okay, great. So shall we?
Can I say something?
Yes, of
And
course.
to that end, a reminder that those 3 hearings in January, the 9th, 17th, and 25th, and we staggered the
Ooh.
dates to accommodate
Yeah.
the different meeting dates of select boards and FinComs in the towns,
Yeah.
so that no one took the hit with, every Tuesday. Those meetings, while some information is given about the entire budget, those meetings tend to focus on chunks of the budget. So
Right.
first, second, third.
Right.
So if you were to wait until after the 3rd meeting, you would have had the opportunity to ask questions and be engaged in all 3 chunks of the budget.
So it makes sense then to look at Monday the 30th then, right, for, okay. That's, I feel like I'm back in my old job where like, all right, everybody get your calendars out, let's sync them up.
So what kind of, what meeting, will you say the name to that meeting?
It would be on the Finance Committee's agenda. They meet on Mondays, and then if needed, the Select Board can join them jointly on their night.
Those meetings
That's what we've done in the past.
January and the first 2 of February, they are the Finance Committee Department budget meetings.
Okay.
So they meet with all the departments in town along those different nights. They'll schedule them in.
Okay.
And I think you had one last year too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And just a quick reminder for folks. So again, this document is available to you electronically online. These dates that you were reviewing, there's a link at the top of this document that says "See legally required dates." If you click on that, it will bring you to a single-page document that cites the law, the regulations, the district agreement, and school committee policy relevant to budget dates.
Yeah, and I know that you've really made some inroads into making it easier to find stuff on the website too, so I appreciate that, especially going into the budget cycle. Okay, all right. I'm marking for the record January 30th, Monday. Well, I'll be here again. Okay, great. Anything else, Michelle? Do you want to talk at all about your process? Or I know Lois sits in quite a bit.
Yes. I don't know if she had any questions.
Lois, do you and the Finance Committee have any specific questions for Michelle's Budget Committee? I know you follow them closely.
I don't, but maybe some of our
Does anybody
members
else?
Not at this time, but I appreciate getting this information to us quicker. January 30th is a lot quicker than it was, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
we did have some challenges last year, I'll
Yeah.
admit,
I
but
understand that.
now we have some, Jordan can give us wonderful spreadsheets, or if we want a 1 to 3 year budget, we can ask for that, and we're making a lot of inroads this year compared to last year.
Yeah. Well, this is good, because that was one of the stumbling points, I think, in the last 2 years, was getting to the end and just having different expectations and not being completely synced up on those key dates. So I really appreciate everyone's patience with that. Anything else on that, on the calendar front?
Yes. The meeting on the 30th?
November
Oh,
30th.
you mean November 30th?
Yep.
Okay. The first meeting of that we will be inviting the Select Board and the Finance Committees will be on November 30th.
Oh,
And I will be sending an invite to all of you. We're meeting tomorrow evening, so the whole subcommittee hasn't talked about this yet. That's why I was a little hesitant.
Okay.
As to what the agenda will be. And that's why I haven't sent out an invite yet, but I
So
will
more
be.
to come after you do your meeting
Yes.
tomorrow night. Got
Yes,
it.
we
Okay.
have, yeah.
I'm sorry, B, what was the meeting on the 30th?
Michelle, do you want to say?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
It's like inviting the community, a community meeting,
Oh.
inviting select boards and finance committees to our subcommittee meeting.
Okay,
And
thank
the
you.
budget subcommittee.
Yep.
Budget subcommittee, yes.
Mhm. Thank you.
So you're kind of, is it fair to say, Michelle, that you're kicking off the community portion with your subcommittee?
Yes.
Is that how you're looking? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Just for folks at home too who are
Right.
interested.
Yeah, we're gonna try and make it collaborative
Great.
this year.
And all budget subcommittee meetings are, of course, public meetings, and
Right.
everyone is always welcome to attend.
But we're going to be marketing certain dates to make
That's
sure
right.
people really get an
Yes.
opportunity
Right.
to dive into the financial cycle leading up to the town meeting, right? That's my goal for the year. My personal goal. Yeah, I'll be talking to everyone, at different stores, kind of like you when you're talking about people's background. Are you a teacher? I'll be in the grocery line at the mini mart asking folks whether or not they've seen any of our meetings and whether or not they're going to go. Okay, good. So we've got November 30th, we've got January 30th, And then the rest of the dates seem to make sense,
Right.
and we'll be in touch as things progress. Great. Thanks. Okay. Where's my orange?
On the bottom.
Oh, there it is, sorry. So I think we can say we've covered calendars and parallel processes. Any major themes that you want to, I know you announced the year of learning. Are there major themes that we should be looking for as the budget process kicks off?
Jordan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that, you know, I think our big themes really are going to be focused on one, dealing with the Warwick departure, how that's going to impact the district's long-term fiscal outlook. So we're preparing for that. I think another big theme in the process will be the facilities master plan.
Yep.
Looking at all of our buildings and grounds and facilities and how we plan long-term for sustainability. And I think a third theme is, you know, strategic investments. How obviously with Warwick departure, there's fiscal implications, but at the same time, we want to be making smart investments. It's not simply about, okay, an amount of assessment is leaving, so we're thinking of cutting back costs. That's not our focus. Our focus is also making strategic investments into the future and strengthening the district, building upon the strengths that already exist. So I think those are three big areas that we'll be looking at throughout the process.
Okay.
But of course, we'll also be guided hugely by our budget subcommittee's priorities. So, you know, those are kind of administrative things that Patricia and I have spoken at length, but also the priorities of our subcommittee will guide the process. And I'm sure these collaborative meetings throughout, I think that although not a specific priority necessarily, I think the more collaborative process will drive our process more than it did last year. I wasn't part of it last year, but I hope getting here earlier and trying to be more collaborative, we'll have an opportunity to incorporate the needs and desires of the component towns as well, much earlier in the process.
Great. Questions from the Select Board or the Finance Committee? No?
No.
Okay.
Does that mean Warwick's a private school now? If they're not in the district?
No, so they're still part of the district.
They're still part of the
They're
Pioneer Valley district?
They are.
Okay.
So if, I'll do it,
Yeah, that
30
was
second,
be
30
right.
second
Just-
primer on it? Oh, no, well,
Are we done with major themes? Because we're going to slide right into Warwick separation agreement, so it could be a good segue.
what if I do a super quick primer on the Warwick transition process, and then maybe Jordan can talk about some of the numbers involved and implications?
Great.
Would that help?
Yeah.
So Warwick is one of our 4 district towns. Under the district agreement, Warwick has the right to leave the district, and that is a process that takes place between the school committee and the town. So I want to be clear, this is not something that the towns vote on. This is, they have the right to leave if they meet certain requirements, one of which is paying off any debts that exist, and Warwick has paid off its portion of the state loan that we incurred in 2018 through the special legislation. They had a vote at town meeting. They've written us a check. We have written them a letter. Desi has seen the letter and said, yep, you paid off your portion. So there's been a sea change in the relationship between Warwick and the district, and it's a positive sea change. We are now working collaboratively and actually talking about ways that if Warwick does leave on July 1st, ways that we might stay engaged with each other and support each other. The founding superintendent came to my office a few weeks ago, and we had a terrific first meeting. So if Warwick right now, the district the Warwick transition subcommittee, which Michelle also chairs.
Oh.
Michelle is at 4 night meetings this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just saying.
Competition bee.
Yeah.
Michelle's got me beat.
As is Jordan, as am I, like, you know, we have a team going. That committee with the folks in Warwick have drafted 3 documents. The Warwick Transition Agreement, which describes how the divorce takes place. The Warwick Tuition Agreement describes how Warwick which intends to set up a pre-K through 6 district up there in their
Ah.
beautiful little building. They're not going to run a middle or secondary school. They intend to tuition their kids back into Pioneer. So there is a tuition agreement. The third agreement is the retiree cost participation agreement, and that describes how Warwick will fulfill its obligation to pay future costs associated with retirement and other post-employment benefits for employees who were with the district while Warwick was part of the district. And that got complicated. Again, we've been working collaboratively. Both sides have independent counsel, and counsel from both sides have worked well with each other. Jordan and I have been working with a team from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We had another meeting with them yesterday. They've provided, while both Warwick and the school committee have signed off on final versions, or temporarily final versions of the 3 documents, we sent them to DESE for review, and they're sending us some comments back. So those documents will need to go for a second round of approvals. I don't think anything major. So Warwick has to get approval from the commissioner by December 31st for their plan for their district. So they're working feverishly to get that, but that's them, that's not us.
Right.
Once the 3 documents have DESE's final approval, re-signed off by the town, and they get approval for their district, July 1st is the date. On July 1st, a switch is flipped. The kids from Warwick no longer belong to us. They belong to the Warwick, I don't remember the name. I don't think it's Warwick Public Schools.
Community?
Warwick Community,
School?
the new school district, and the agreements go into effect. So that's kind of what will happen. Jordan will talk to you about the financial implications, which include we will lose the assessment from the town of Warwick, and we'll lose some other monies, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
Right.
Oh, Lois has a question.
Yeah. This is something that took place prior to most of you being around, but has any thought been given to pay off that loan? There were some of us, some of the towns,
Yes.
wanted it 5 years, and we were told that that DESE would not allow it to be 5 years, that it had to go 10 years, and that cost more in the way of interest for us, of course.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it comes up because of Warwick and paying their share. I don't know whether the towns would vote it or not, but that was questionable at that time. Is any
There has been thought, and great minds think alike, because Scott Adams, our treasurer, sent an email yesterday to Jordan and me asking about, should we pay this loan off more quickly? Jordan, I'm going to ask you in a minute to talk about the interest rate, because I believe the amount we pay is really low. It's a super low interest rate. We brought the question to our prior fiscal overseer, Rick Kingsley. His guidance was that we not ask the towns to support payoff of the loan early, because the special legislation positions the outstanding nature of the loan as one of the reasons why the commissioner puts a fiscal overseer in place. If the loan is paid off, the commissioner still has the authority to keep a fiscal overseer in place. However, he could opt at that point, he could opt now, but he might say, okay, you don't have the loan. He could put a fiscal control board into place, and that board would have expanded powers over the district beyond what the fiscal overseer currently has, and I don't think any of us would want a fiscal control board to step in. So the prior fiscal overseer's guidance was don't do it, but that doesn't mean we couldn't ask for updated guidance from the current fiscal overseer.
Can you just clarify which or what loan we're talking about?
In 2018, special legislation was written to allow the state to make a loan to the district to help us pay off a debt that we incurred through our food services program overtime that went undetected.
Okay.
I remember that.
Okay. Yeah, it's all coming back. Okay.
Yeah, it's all came back to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. And so it has, right now, in summary, it has a low interest rate, and there are definitely implications for paying it off.
Yes.
Anything else, Jordan, or do we just steal your thunder?
Well, no, I don't think it's stolen thunder. I mean, to Patricia's point, I think we'll consult with the current fiscal overseer. I mean, our treasurer, Lois's point was concerned about interest, and obviously the bond anticipation note that we renew each year. I mean, the interest rate will be higher than it was. I mean, I'm sure everyone. It's on the news, right? Interest rates are much higher than they were a year ago. We'll want to take a global view and see what are the positives and negatives of doing that. To Patricia's point, if the implication could be substantial in terms that a new board, that doesn't seem advantageous to avoid, relative to a fairly substantial budget, a small amount of interest, so we'll want to think about all of those possibilities. And I think speaking with our fiscal overseer, who's going to be here tomorrow, so it'll be an appropriate time to have that conversation, I think.
Okay.
But I have so much more thunder. Don't worry,
Go
thunder
ahead.
was not stolen. I know next on the agenda, right, the Warwick transition. So we have a good overview of the what's happening, how it's going. Patricia's point, been very collaborative. A lot of people have been working very hard. I've come in the middle of the process, but people have been great. It's been good.
And the next key date is the December 31st, if I'm wrong. Okay.
Before then is the revision of the documents according to the updated guidance we get from DESI.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I think that I'm sure people want to know what financial implications does this have on the district. So I think first and foremost, as Patricia mentioned, Warwick's assessments are not, if they leave on July 1st, they're not going to be assessed for the cost of operating the school, right? So now there's 3 towns. However, we're not going to see substantial immediate cost savings because a handful of students leave. So that I think has long-term planning implications. In addition, and so those assessments this year were $814,471. So not a small amount of money. In addition, our Chapter 70, because our foundation enrollment will decrease, we'll have less students for that. So we will receive less money because that's a per pupil calculation. So, that's another $169,780 that we will also lose. Of course, for the students that are tuition back, we have an increase in revenue. So I think that, without forcing people to do computation, certainly without a increase in the remaining towns' assessments or a way to substantially reduce expenditures, there are conversations that need to happen and implications for long-term planning. Because we no longer have those assessments, we have the reduction in Chapter 70. The amount of students that tuition back, the estimate is at a maximum it would be 17, but we have to be realistic. Some of those students could go to the tech school, right? So that those students wouldn't generate tuition revenue for the district. So there's a deficit there.
Do you, sorry to interrupt,
Of course.
do you put in like a working number or ballpark number in terms of the revenue from the tuition students?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
assuming 10 students.
Okay.
There's a maximum of 17. I think I would rather be safe.
Yep. Conservative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So and so right that would generate approximately $170,000 in additional revenue.
Okay.
But I think
So that still leaves a gap.
sure.
Yeah, if I'm doing
And I think it's important. Of course, the district is already far along in investigating. Well, okay, but what synergies do exist? What cost savings will exist as these students leave? So we have thoroughly investigated that. Have had in-depth conversations, and of course, taking the our goal would be let's not impact programmatic. Let's not, if possible, impact instruction. So doing that, there's still a gap, right? If you say, okay, let's eliminate the things that won't hurt our students, that won't hurt learning opportunities, we don't get there. So then the remaining question is, what assumption are we putting in for an increase in assessments?
Mm-hmm.
And for my calculations, I think that I owe it to you all to say, okay, well, here's a starting point of what I think would make it so we would have minimal programmatic disruption at Northfield Elementary. And I think if we had a 7% increase for the initial year of Warwick's departure, that we could probably, with the cost savings, the maximum cost savings we could find, we could probably meet the challenge. It wouldn't be easy. It would take serious belt tightening on our part. But I think that's our responsibility to ask for the absolute minimum from the remaining members, but at the same time not impact the program that the students are receiving. So in our initial calculation, 7%, and that wouldn't be a consistent. I think it's important, it wouldn't be every single year from now on, because that's unsustainable. It would be a one-time, larger than previous year's increase to meet the unique challenge of having reduced assessments, while at the same time, as I think we all know, looking at the news, operating in an environment of pretty significant inflation and cost increases. So that that's one thing, is we're not, year over year, your district's not going to have a flat budget. Maybe 5 years ago you would have been, but right now in the current environment, there's a lot of costs. We buy fuel oil, we buy electricity. I think individual
just by
homeowners
standing still, your budgets are going to go up. Yeah.
Right, and we have some. Is the facilities assessment why part of the reason we're doing the facility master plan? We have some old buildings, right, that probably are not operating extremely efficiently in things like fuel oil consumption or electricity consumption, just by virtue of being older buildings.
Yeah.
So those are the challenges we're looking at, and that's why, again, we want this to be a collaborative process, because now more than ever we need to be partners with the towns, because we're at a critical juncture in our long-term financial planning.
Well, I think just hearkening back to what I said earlier then, in talking about the major themes and then how these play out over the course of our parallel processes, and then when we connect back up, it'll be interesting to see how this is playing out. So while it's sobering information, I think it's information that we need.
Yeah.
And we need folks to understand now, way before getting into a town meeting. So I think this is helpful. Okay. Like I said, sobering but helpful. Are there questions from the select board or the finance committee? I just want to make sure. I know we need to move on to the auditor too at some point. So I'm just going, and we've got a couple other subjects. Is there anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hiding behind him.
There you
Which is
go.
unusual for me.
I know.
A lot of people hide behind him.
I know.
But did you say the tuition agreement was similar to Vernon, when we had Vernon? Was Vernon's tuition income factored into the budgets for Pioneer
Mhm.
before this?
Yes,
They were,
yes.
okay. And so we're talking about a tuition of roughly $10,000?
Oh, no, about 17.
Oh, 17.
And with the Warwick agreement, there's also specificity about students with special needs whose needs are require that the district hire extra people or do evaluations that we don't typically do. Warwick would pick up the cost for those.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question. Anything else? Oh, David.
So just in layman's terms, what's Warwick's end play in this? What's to prevent the next town from trying to do this? I mean, if they're gonna opt out and create their own district, and then they're gonna send their kids back there for tuition back, what's their long-term goal?
So saying this as someone who came in so late to the process, right? This was underway, they had voted, I'm sad about it, I wish we could have found a different way. I like a lot of what I hear about. My perspective as a new person is that town has a deep desire to keep their building open. They talk frequently about maybe 250 years of continuous schooling within Warwick. And the closure of that school was for them a knife to the heart.
Yeah.
And they have sought, therefore, any mechanisms that they could to open some kind of school. They're partnering with folks who investigate creative rural education across the country. Someone on their to-be school committee has got a fellowship to explore rural education. So their end game is they want their young kids educated in their town. That's their desire, that's their commitment. They're moving heaven and earth to make it happen. I'm not sure I know how to respond in terms of what would prevent the next town. I don't know that Leiden, for instance, Pearl Roads is a very different building.
Very different.
Warwick, I don't know if you've been up recently, but it's in great shape. They've maintained it. They have homeschool kids using it now. They do all kinds of programming there. They keep inviting me up for Tuesday lunches. Yeah.
Okay,
You're
great.
welcome.
Anything else?
I have a quick one.
Oh, Heath.
Just what the implications of this control board, like, you have any more information on what sort of changes that would mean for the district? Like, what sort of things do they impose, and what,
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like it's a good thing, but you can elaborate on that.
When Rick talked with me last year, he was very clear. It's not something we want. I don't want to botch the answer. So what I'd like to do, Heath, is get the citation and send it to you.
Okay.
And maybe Andrea and
Yep.
you can share. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
That's helpful.
Can I follow up on that one, Keith? So the control board only comes, the potential of the control board only comes in if the note's paid off early?
No, I should be clear about that. There was a belief in the district that once we paid off the loan, the fiscal overseer would automatically be removed. We sought guidance. I didn't see that in the legislation. And my Julie Burke is nodding her head back there. So we sought guidance from the department, and they came back clearly stating, no. The commissioner may keep a fiscal overseer in place as long as they want. Now Jordan and I have a collaborative relationship with the department. We meet every month with the associate commissioner and two folks who are specialists in regional finance. And I think they have faith in us as a team. Julie's nodding her head back there, Raina. We're transparent, we follow up, we listen to them, we take their advice, we bring them questions. And my guess is that Cami Lamica, our current fiscal overseer, is sending positive reports back. They want our district to succeed. They want us to be on, have a healthy financial outlook, which means we need to have solid financial systems in place, and they're not going to let go until they have evidence of that over time. We've got Jordan now, which is a total game changer for the district. So I think we're on a good road. I'd be interested to hear what you say, but I find the fiscal oversight really helpful. It's another set of experienced eyes watching what we do, and we have sought and received permission from the commissioner to allow the fiscal overseer actually to do some mentoring of Jordan as well. That was a line I didn't think we would be allowed. I was a little hesitant, but the commissioner came back saying, nope, We think you're on the right path. We think she can help. She is allowed to provide some guidance.
Bernie.
I have a question. We, the finance committee originally, when they did the fiscal overseer, was approximately $60,000 per year was appropriated to pay for the overseer. What is the current cost of the overseer now?
Oh my gosh, it's nothing close to that.
Yeah.
5,000?
No, I mean, so yeah, I think we have budgeted $15,000 this year.
She's $85 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she bills monthly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? We'll keep it moving. So, district agreement update. Then you had mentioned about the parallel processes and the burden of those
Yeah.
two. So, is the district agreement? Do you have a timeline that we should kind of file away in our heads?
We had a
about?
fantastic timeline.
I know
back
you
there,
did.
Melissa Gary, and we put it online, and we hoped
I
that we were
remember
going to
the
bring the towns
PowerPoint.
together. It was just too much. The Warwick, we're doing great with the Warwick work, but that has been consuming. So until Warwick is done and tied up, I just don't see how the district agreement picks up again. Let's say that we are able to pick it up in January. I don't think that we would be, Melissa, I don't think we would be ready, Michelle, for the towns to have it on for a vote this spring. No, I think it would have to be something that we collaboratively get ready for a vote by the towns in the spring of 2024.
Yeah, you want to have
Okay.
time with it.
Okay.
Yeah. And we want to get momentum going, right? Like we
Right.
don't want there was so much work that happened some years ago that then wasn't finalized. So once, like with Warwick, once we got going, we moved it. Once we get going with the district agreement again, we'll move it, but I don't see how it happens in time for this spring's town meeting.
Right.
Okay. So that's helpful then, because I mean that's what we're always, when we're looking at the calendars, is all of the different things that need to happen before we get to May.
Yeah.
So so we'll just reset that for next May then.
Mm-hmm.
The 2024 as opposed to 2023. Okay. That's helpful. Okay, so on to school resource officer and memorandum of understanding on that. I know that the MOU comes up at the end of 2023, if I remember, June 30th, I think. So,
Yeah, so in terms of planning with that, we have we're anticipating several new members of the school committee, and formation of the budget process. We're kind of looking at what our reorganizing and also just kind of setting our goals and priorities for the coming years, not just this coming year, but longer term. And so we need to have a conversation with the new committee about where the school resource officer fits into those priorities.
Right, so from a calendar standpoint, you, so we're used to being elected in May. You just got reelected in
November.
November, congratulations. So your next meeting is, as you're reorganizing, it's coming up?
We're laughing because this has been such a complicated,
Yeah.
So, one of the things that is thrown a curve on it is the fact that in order to certify the election, we have actually until November 23rd, because I have to wait for any postmark mail to come back in as postmark before the 8th has to be accounted for. Anything overseas has to be accounted for. Any provisional ballots that we have to do any kind of research has to be accounted for, and there's certain dates to that. Pretty much the date to look at right now is the 18th, at least in my town, because I don't have any overseas. So I probably can start certifying, or at least give the figures back to the school committee probably Thursday p.m. I'll have the last 3 ballots cast that I have. So,
Okay.
and I think the other towns are in the same position as far as doing that. So, and I think Bernardston will probably be in the same boat. I'll be able to tell you about Leiden because I can talk to the person that's going to be doing that too. So she's arranging for that to happen. But the thing is, we have to post, which is here posted, that the ballots are going to be counted on Thursday.
Okay.
And that would be added to the count.
And you're
So-
meeting.
So we're meeting Thursday evening.
Yeah. Okay.
So after getting advice from council, what our plan is for this Thursday is for members that were on the committee as of Election Day, November 8th, will be meeting and doing whatever business needs to be conducted at Thursday's meeting. And then our meeting in December will be reorganization with the newly elected and newly sworn in members.
Gotcha. Okay. So do you want to talk about the, how do you foresee the SRO and the MOU process working after you guys are all organized?
Right. So I think we'll be, once we're reorganized in December, we'll plan for setting some goals and priorities with the new committee members' input, and having and integrating that also into the budget process of how as the subcommittee is continuing their planning and setting priorities for the budget.
Okay.
B,
Question.
Do you want a school resource officer in your school system?
I think I don't think that that's an easy question to answer. I mean, I think that I don't think anyone doesn't want a school resource officer. I think that there are lots of competing priorities within the school district and within our budgeting.
Is it a budget thing, or is it a social problem or policy problem?
I think it's.
What's the problem?
I think it's primarily a budget problem.
Budget problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bernie.
I have a question. So right now, currently, you have no SRO whatsoever, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you had appropriated money in your budget to cover that cost,
Yes.
correct? So you're not expending any funds.
Yes.
So then the police department receives no aid for any position that's currently held by that, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and for the record, we just hired a police officer approximately a month ago, and he's attending SRO training this week. So just FYI.
Well, is he training specifically to go to Pioneer?
No, he's training. There's certain.
Because I was under the assumption that police officer was going to be the new SRO up at Pioneer.
Right, that's your assumption, and what the process is.
This is why you don't assume. I don't know why I got that in my head,
this is
though.
fine, Mary, because when you ask
and I don't mean to hold everybody up. I don't know why I thought that.
I think it's worth restating. So the process was to go through the hiring process,
right,
which are 2 steps. So the screening, hiring. With the police, there's a third one called the lateral transfer,
right,
which allows any eligible officer who's interested to quote-unquote lateral transfer. Now, we're not looking at a large pool of officers in Northfield, so that's why you would make that assumption.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And that's also why he's following his interest, and that's also why he and the chief agreed that the training makes sense, right? So as we've moved through our process, and as you move through your process, then assuming he's still interested and he's the candidate, and we would do interviews at that point in time, then he'd be ready to go. Right, that's our goal on the Northfield side.
Yeah,
Bernie.
I remember that we talked when I asked him about that, and he said, depending on what the guidelines were going to be, what was expected of the SRO, what the MOU would be, but that he mentioned he would be interested in it if the conditions were right.
Okay, good.
Had another conversation.
Yeah.
So just from a parallel process standpoint, do you see this going through a particular, I know you have a deep subcommittee structure. Now, having sat through a couple of meetings, I'm aware of how large the committee is and how your work is done differently, and it's done through the subcommittees. So do you see a particular subcommittee tackling the MOU and or you see it going through the budget process and possibly another. I'm just curious what your thoughts might
So
be.
I think most of the MOUs pass through the Curriculum and Personnel Committee, or subcommittee, and so
Okay.
they're, I think they would be largely responsible for drafting the MOU.
Okay.
And that would be brought back to the larger committee, and then certainly the budget subcommittee would be advising on the financial piece of that position.
So,
Alex?
yeah, so, who's gonna be signing this MOU? Because the way I always understood the law is that it happens in consultation between the police chief and the superintendent of the district. So, who's going to be signing this document, and what role do those people think they're gonna be playing in it?
I think you're right. My understanding of the model SRO contract is that it is signed by the superintendent and the police
I would
chief and
think,
the
yeah.
select board, I thought. Am I right about that? That there are 3 signatures? I could be wrong. So I take my marching orders from the school committee.
Okay.
And the school committee has said that, remember, 9 open seats on a 12-member board. 9 open seats on a 12-member board. So there's, let's see what happens once everything is certified and Joanna's tabulated the results. And
Did you hear that, Northfield?
Yeah,
Okay.
just looking at the document right here, Pat, the superintendent, school committee chair of the board, and then of course the town clerk has to certify it.
Is that the prior document?
No, this is the current one that
Yeah, that's
expires in June.
Sorry, the current one. So I don't know what the model SR, the model document from the state. That's not the model document from the state.
I could tell you that.
Okay.
Whether it's based on that or not, I don't know.
Right.
So Alex, to the question of what do I think about it? I take my marching orders from the school committee.
That's smart right there. You see, appointed officials answer to their elected officials, and I think that what I'm seeing here is that we have an uncertain future with this position as a result of the fact that there's so many open seats on the school committee, so it's kind of hard to tell. I know as this select board has, myself, I won't speak for you folks, have encouraged, in a way pressured Chief John Hall to be proactive in crafting this position correctly. And I only hope that when the new school committee members come on and other avenues play with that we see a similar system of pressure and policy to be placed on the superintendent to move this position forward. Because if they don't, Pat's right, she has to answer to the school committee, and that's where I'm kind of concerned, because if the school committee is anti-police, anti-SRO, whatever, they don't want to spend the money, then Patricia has to answer to that. Otherwise, that's kind of being insubordinate, and that's not good. So I only hope that we have an SRO school committee coming up that will be in favor of keeping a law enforcement figure to train and educate and, unite the students. It's a big position.
Well, I think what's helpful, Alex, is you're basically pointing out how people can weigh in. And I think what would be useful from a parallel process standpoint, because I know that the superintendent, the school committee chair, and myself, and the town administrator, and the police chief have kept the lines of communication open. As a project manager, I would like to see things moving through the school committee parallel process faster, but it's not my purview. It's just my preference. And but I think what we can do as you set your priorities and you set your calendar, and as people fill in and get used to which subcommittees and how they're going to do it, it would be nice to circle back, as we're doing on the major financial themes, is to circle back on this. Because I know it has raised some questions, and what we've said before is we as a select board have had to get up to speed on public safety because of the building, but also we replaced our longtime retired police chief. And also we had police reform in Massachusetts. So this board, and we've been together now for a while, because Mary's been on here for 2 years, so public safety and police policies, the SRO, have been front and center in our priority list for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're feeling we
Yeah.
want to share the love over there.
So, and B, thank you for saying that. And in terms of sharing the love, I want to make sure that the board, FinCom, and our community understands that the development of the SRO position is by far not the only relationship we have with law enforcement.
Right.
So Jordan participated recently in a meeting, and he can be kind of funny about it, where we had law enforcement and fire chiefs from all of our towns in my office for hours pulling apart our emergency planning. They're coming back again on Thursday morning. John Hall, Bob High and Jim Carmichael were at Pioneer today for the first safety training of the year. They'll be at NES and BES in the coming weeks. So I don't know where this notion, but I've heard it, and frankly it's unfortunate, and I wish that folks had stopped it in its tracks. Something about anti-police. That was an unfair aspersion, and I really wish that one of you had stopped people in meetings and said, on what evidence are you basing a comment like that? What I have heard from some of our safety partners is that they have never had a superintendent who came into the district, called them up, and said, will you please come and talk to us, which I did with every police chief and every fire chief. Again, we've got folks around the table in a way that has not happened in anybody's memory. So let's all remember, the SRO is one aspect of possible law enforcement relationship with the district. We have quite a healthy thing going in terms of developing, nurturing, maintaining relationships with all of our safety personnel, and in particular, updating our emergency evacuation plans in a way which I predict will be copied by other districts. I think our document will be superior to the 6 or so from other districts that we have been reviewing. So just want to share that.
And if I can just add, sorry.
No, hold on. So just from a parallel process standpoint, so I appreciate the statement and the clarification. I think this has been a long time in coming. It's getting all of these groups together. What I would like to know and ask the school committee and the superintendent is, it's a priority for us, and it affects our budget, and it affects our staffing. And public safety staffing with respect to police, as I've described on multiple occasions, is no small task to recruit. It's similar to recruiting math teachers, I would gather. There are few and far between in terms of experience. We're really lucky to have had a very experienced officer come on board, but it wasn't a wide pool of people to pick from either. So we have a long lead time in that respect, and for strategic personnel and planning, I would like to find a way where we can connect the processes occasionally so that we can share that information, and for those of us who are interested in public safety, because there are roles to play in a community. And this is one thing we're going to be addressing on the select board too, is there's roles for select board members to play in emergencies. That doesn't affect the school, but just to put that out there. There's parallel processes, but I want to make sure there's real connections that result in some actions and dialogue and collaboration. So let me just say that. And Heath, go ahead.
So I'm glad to hear that they're starting to come up there for some emergency planning and everything. You know, having an open relationship with them and getting the higher ups up there is great. It doesn't compare with having an officer in the school 5 days a week. You know, so I'd be interested to hear, because Raina, you said that there's competing priorities. The health and safety of our kids in that school district should be number one. So I'm interested to hear, what are those competing priorities?
I mean, teachers, heating the building. I mean, all of the things that come up in our budget lines. I mean, where do we take from to pay for, how do we pay for the teachers' salary increases? How do we pay for a math teacher? How do we pay for principals? I mean, I think that it's a complicated budget, and there's a lot of pieces to it. And, we don't have a lot of ways to raise funds. So that I think those are the competing priorities that I'm talking about.
So fiscal, when you say priorities, it's fiscal priorities that are in competition.
Absolutely. And are there, is there value to having an SRO in the building at 5 days a week? I absolutely agree that there is value. In terms of, is that more valuable than some of the other things that we have to pay for? I think that's a larger conversation. And that's those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about when we think about the position. To hear Warwick is leaving, and we don't know how we're going to be able to continue all of our current programming, and to think about this other position that we haven't been paying this year. Are we going to set aside money for that position over some other program that we're currently running? I think that's those are the things that we're thinking about. And that's what makes it a hard decision.
So the second part of the question then is, if Northfield were willing to float the entire bill for that position, would it be a no questions asked type of thing to have it in the school system?
I think, I mean, personally, I would say yes. I can't speak for every member of the school committee, but I wouldn't anticipate that would be a problem.
Okay. Something to consider.
Yeah, so let's, I think this is helpful, because let's figure out what the problems are and what's holding people back. Because the particular person and the personnel and the Northfield's priority is that it's important, and we're looking at the way we structure the police department around it. So I think this is helpful, and I want to circle back as we get into like November 30th and some of the other budget. To me, this would be one of those major themes that how do we solve it? Right, and if we need to take, and that's why we go to town meetings, is so we ask for people's support on whatever we come up with. And anyway, so I want to make sure, I want a commitment from this group to really make those connections in the parallel process on these particular major themes. And so then when we get to the end of this process, and we're looking at the warrant, and the finance committee is wrapping things up, we know how it's playing out. We know what the solutions are, because we're talking about the major themes now, and what are the solutions at the end of that cycle, right? So I appreciate the really open discussion,
and can I just make a quick statement? 2 seconds.
Does it add anything new to the discussion?
It does.
Okay.
To Patricia, I just want
to the larger group.
Thank you.
The community. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to understand all the detailed work that everybody's doing up, in the district, in order to have a very well organized and well processed safety environment, And although I hate that the label anti-police has been put up or describe the school,
let's clarify
I'm positive that any rational citizen and parents know otherwise, because that school is not anti-police, to say the least.
I
hate that label.
Well, I think we're not anti-police, and if that's come up in discussion, I think what we're trying to get to the bottom of is, and what you've clarified through Heath's question, is it's fiscal.
Yeah.
And it's you setting your priorities, and you're on a different schedule and timeline and governance structure than we are. So we're here to help, and we're here to connect, like I said, on those themes. And I think if we're focused in on the fiscal part of it, I think the rest of it we should just all agree with the community here and at large that we're dropping that portion of the discussion. Right?
Thank you.
That label.
And in terms of fiscal,
is.
Heath, and student safety and fiscal upcoming conversations, We are possibly going to be bringing to the subcommittee and therefore to the towns questions about is it time to take on the capital improvements for safety, in particular at Pioneer, related to cameras, key card access. Those would be major expenses. So we're thinking globally about student safety.
The entry.
Probably wouldn't come to you for that, for the elementary schools at this point because we need to do the facilities assessment plan. But Pioneer is the district building. That's not going anywhere. So just want to make clear there may be other ideas that will involve money and student safety that we ask for conversation about.
Okay, so good point. It's not, like you said before, it's not just the SRO, and all of these things cost money. So one of the major themes that we'll come back to is not just the SRO, but any safety expenses that need to be undertaken. And I would include in that, the use of town personnel, right? I don't know if that's an appropriate indirect cost. Not appropriate, but I don't know if that's the appropriate label for it. But
like a town police officer?
Right, that we're providing resources, right, by virtue of the building exists in Northfield and our police chief is involved in the safety even if we don't have an SRO, the town is providing, right? So anyway, I just want to note that, and let's connect on that major theme again. 20 of 8, we still have to do the audit.
The NES lease?
Yeah, quickly.
Super quick?
Yeah, I think you and Andrea and I have had some conversations and some emails, so if there's an update here, that would be great.
And I think maybe I missed an email. So thank you, Andrea, for the suggestion. Well, why don't you have your lawyer draft something? So our lawyer, the district's lawyer, has drafted something. So for other folks, Jim Trell has got fabulous staff who want to get the kids outside more and into the property. We're looking at trying to expand our outdoor learning in all the buildings, and that will come up in the budget conversation about how we might do that.
Oh, good.
I didn't realize until recently that the town owns the entire parcel, 12.5 acre parcel, on which NES stands. So we currently lease, the district leases 3.65 acres or so.
Yep.
And that acreage actually doesn't even include all of what is now the ball fields and grassy area. So we approached the town and said, gosh, how would we go about asking permission to start doing a little bit of a trail this fall? Conversation. Our attorney has drafted an addendum to the current NES lease. And really the only thing that it would do is change the boundaries of the leased property. I haven't sent it to you for review because Buildings and Grounds needs to be the first subcommittee that has a crack at it. I'm thinking if Buildings and Grounds reviews it and were to recommend, maybe it could go simultaneously to the town and to school committee for initial review. So all of the rest of the lease would remain intact and unchanged. The only difference would be, again, instead of leasing the 3.5 acres that are, there's that lease mortgage type language that describes the boundaries.
Right.
That would we would ask that change to include the 12.5 acre parcel. With the idea being that over the next 5 years or so, we would, with the town's blessing and working with conservation, working with open space, etc., we would begin using all of the 12.5 acres for educational purposes, while maintaining there is an easement for public access on the side of the property, the north boundary of the property. So,
okay. So I think given the original approach, I think I'm always looking ahead in terms of select board meetings and noticing how Rena and I are on different schedules. So I think the key thing that I noted on one of the email threads was we just need to sync up. If the lawyers are all okay, is like which select board meeting it gets signed at which school committee, because we're on slightly opposite nights.
I have one quick question on
yes.
this. So I
Dan.
think the town maintains the ball fields and that, mows them, that sort of thing. So now if we release that, does now the school take that initiative and maintain?
So the way that our attorney drafted the addendum, the lease and things like who maintains what remains intact. The only thing that would change is the extent of the property that we lease. So whoever is plowing whatever, so we do the sidewalks, you plow the parking lot, that remains the same. The responsibility to maintain the interior of the building in good operating condition, that remains the same.
On ball fields.
Whatever the agreement is
So-
currently for the ball fields would remain the same.
I'm looking at the time, so this is going to have to come up because we have to sign it at the select board, and we probably should, out of courtesy and keeping in touch with the FinCom, we can certainly go over the details then. I don't want to get into too much detail tonight, other than I think we just need to work out getting the school committee version back, and then we'll have our lawyer do it, because I think that's where we started, was with our lawyer, and it wasn't working for the school lawyer. So that said, then it's just Rena and I kind of looking at our agendas and going, all right, if you've got November 15th, I've got November 16th or 18th or whatever. So, and then we can put it back on and talk at length about specific details, if that's okay. I'm just looking at time, and we're going to do the audit, so.
Okay.
And we've had him, thank you for waiting for a long, long time.
Thank you, Heath. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Let's do this again.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and I'm assuming thank you. So, Finance Committee, more fun. You're going to sit through the auditor report? Or okay. Finance Committee, what's your, are you?
They're discussing it.
Yep, I know. I'm asking out loud for the camera.
Of ourselves before we do that. I mean, we have it right here.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay here for the whole thing?
Yes, I think we should.
Okay.
Great. Let's move on to the auditor. Thank you for sitting through. We're trying, as you know, we're trying to get through quite a bit before the end of the year. So,
And I can just give a little introduction.
yes, please.
This process started a couple of years ago when I noticed when I started that you hadn't had an audit since 2011.
Oops.
And then you wanted to build a building.
All before our time.
And you want to build a building which was going to require audited financial statements for bonding. So that was a huge thing. So we did do the first audit. I think it was a 2019 audit. I don't have that one in front of me right now. That was the first one, and then of course COVID hit, and then also we had a changeover in our accountant position, and we also we decided to put it off and kind of do a look back. We have been funding annual, and I'm recommending that we continue to fund it annually. In fact, including maybe putting it in the accountant's budget and taking it out of the special article, because I think you're looking at long-term audited statements if you're going to be bonding and borrowing anyway. So it's not really a annual thing. It's not a article anymore. It's really going to be an annual expense. Having said that, we reached out and started working with Scanlon and Associates, and Jeff Gendron is here tonight. He's an audit manager at Scanlon and Associates. What you'll get is the financial statements, which are, if you're a numbers person, that's really where you're interested. But for most of us, myself, it's the management letter. that really pertains to, you know, the points that want to be pointed out, and lead the myself and my financial team, which is the treasurer collector, our financial person, the accountant, and the assessors, kind of guides us going forward. And so with no further ado, I will introduce Jeff to kind of take you through what these things mean and the process that they entertain, and then you can ask him questions.
Just one quick point, Andre, I think for context, the year of the audit is from FY22 then? That we're going to be talking about?
No,
21 to 22?
21.
Right.
Is that,
22 just closed in June, and we just actually put in the statement to the DOR like a few weeks ago, so it would be premature to have actually a 22
oh,
audit.
sorry, okay. But I just want to point out, so we were just talking about
calendar 22, but it's fiscal 21 through June.
That's fiscal 21, and we were just talking about, in terms of the budget, we were talking about FY 24, so we're doing a span of a few years here, so it's worth noting we're looking backwards with the audit as opposed to forward with the budget. Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead. Hi,
Welcome.
Thank you, Andrea and the board. As Andrea said, my name's Jeff Gendron. I work for Scanlon Associates, and we're here to discuss the audit results of the FY21 audit. So the first thing is, what's the point of an audit? And the point of the audit is to give an opinion on the financial statements. The basic financial statements are these big reports, about 70 pages long. Got some great reading if you have time on your hands. And, you know, how do we come about giving an opinion on this audit report? So the first thing is that we have an analytical approach that we go through and we compare, prior years, even though if we didn't do the audit last in FY20, we look at your financial statements, that are internally produced, do some comparisons, we compare the budgets, and ultimately, what are your biggest assets and your revenues that the town has? And the departments that are really in charge of those and generating those are your treasurer's department, that handles all your cash and investments, and your collector's department, which handles your receivables and all your tax revenue. So that's where we, mainly concentrate. We start there, we kind of work our way outwards. We give those departments and some of your other financial departments, the assessors, we give them internal control procedures questionnaire that they fill out. After they fill it out to us, sometimes now we get them electronically sent to us and we can review them even before we step in the town hall. We look at the answers, we see what they replied, and then when we come to do the audit, we'll test to make sure that what they say they're doing, they're actually doing. What they are doing is in compliance with Mass General Law and best practices. So besides the treasurer and collector's office, we review some of your other accounts, special revenue, grants, etc. And I know we looked at the police department, their grants, and the off-duty account. We also looked at the highway department, specifically the Chapter 90 program. And from there, Tom, and the firm gave an opinion. It's on page 3 and 4 of the audit report.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that at the bottom. And it's an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. That's the best opinion you can have. And it kind of goes at the very end of page 3. It says, there's a bold space that says opinions. And then it continues on to page 4. And then after talking to Tom, I was going to start off with the management letter, which is a much smaller report, about 10 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be, which a lot of people like to, go over that more thoroughly. And then I will go over some highlights of the financial report later. So the big thing with a management letter is a review of your internal control. And during the audit, there were 2 significant deficiencies that were found, and that's where we kind of like to, focus this report. and discussion on of this report. And the first one is the cash and investment reconciliation procedures. So during the audit, when we tested those procedures from the treasurer's office, we found that they were lacking.
So Jeff, just so we're all on the same
sorry.
page, you're on page 5 of the management letter?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So finding 2021-1 cash and investment reconciliation procedures. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks.
Correct. And the 2 bullet points is what kind of explains the highlights of that finding. The main things really are on that first bullet point. There's a variance that existed between the treasurer's records and the collector's treasurer's record and the accountant's general ledger.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second bullet point, which says that there wasn't a complete and accurate cash book being utilized for the whole year. And that also, it was a partial cash book, and that individual bank statement reconciliations were not being properly maintained.
Okay, and I'm just noting this is before we did our policies and procedures, right? As we look down under perspective information, we've indicated there was a change in personnel and policy and procedure.
Right, once they go through the comments and they give the information, then the perspective information is actually our reply from the town. I meet with my finance team to look at all of their findings, and then we discuss, what we know, what we see, and I go back and forth with the auditor. Sometimes we actually provide them information that they either missed or didn't see, and other times we get clarification on some of the things that they've said so that we can make sure that we're responding appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So we were well aware that we had some issues, but we have a new team, we have a new treasurer, and we have new accountants. So we feel that was going to show in 21 because the changeover in personnel all happened in that fiscal year, end of 20 into 21. And so there was a lot of catch-up that had to occur, including new procedures reconciling cash and a new cash book, which is now in consistent use. And was also at the same time that we were doing our new policies and procedures. So there's a whole bunch of new policies and procedures that the finance committee and the team that worked on that process have voted, and the select board have accepted as well. So, and we've worked very closely with our accountant, and our treasurer and accountant have established some much more timely reconciliation, and that's been a major goal for us.
Excellent.
To get these. Part of the problem was that it just wasn't being reconciled fast enough. I mean, ultimately you have to reconcile to some degree or another in the end, otherwise DOR is going to catch it. But you don't want to find it 5 months later. It's just hard to track that way. You want to reconcile faster so that if anything comes up and it's spotted, you're only looking back a month or two as opposed to trying to figure out what happened 5 months ago. And so there was a gap in time. We had a change in personnel, and we had some other prior issues we were carrying, including a change in the software. And so that all had to get caught up, and it had to get caught up this year. That was a priority to us.
So we're not,
Bernie.
so we're not going to be having these problems anymore, hopefully. I mean, I know I balance my checkbook monthly. You would think the accountant would reconcile this, every month. I would hope.
Right, and part of the issue we have is that we have to consider, and the finance committee will be hearing this from me. We don't give our treasurer enough time.
Yeah.
We have a part-time treasurer collector. She's doing both jobs at 28 hours a week. It's going to be my recommendation that she works a full-time job. It's just she's running out of time.
I did read that.
Yeah, she's just simply running out of time. Now, having said that, she also walked into a process where the cash book was not as. It's not that it wasn't bad. It was badly kept. It wasn't as modern as some of the procedures now. So we've switched over to some of the more generally recognized, acceptable, newer processes. And in so doing that, it will allow us to coordinate a lot more of these things sooner, to meet with the accountant and reconcile these much faster.
And you mentioned we're going to be doing another audit this next year?
Yeah, we have to do a 22, so that's
Okay,
where we're
so
hoping to
that's-
get
that's
a
good.
back catch on us.
So we're
Right.
keeping an eye on it. We're going to make sure
Yep.
we don't have the same problems again.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to
That's
your
very
point,
important.
Bernie, if we don't do audits, we're not going to find the deficiencies
know.
in order to address
Oh,
them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I'm kind of laughing, but it's like, okay, well, we shouldn't be surprised that we are actually listening to Jeff tell us about deficiencies and what we need to do next. But they look doable, and and we also put in financial policies and procedures back earlier this year in 2022. So there's quite a bit that we've
Right.
changed since.
There is, and we don't see it as an adversarial thing to have an audit. We see it as the way to catch these things and to support. I see it as a way to support the financial team. When these things get caught, we sit and we say, okay, we didn't notice this, or we didn't see this, or this wasn't being done right, or do we need a better tool? Do we need a better instrument? Do we need better software? Do we need more time? Do we need, what is it that has kept us or is keeping us from doing these things the way we think that the auditor would like it done and the way that we want to get it done, so that it's appropriate, proper, and going forward. So we have a great audit team who like to work with us. They're available. We can call them and ask questions and get comments. Their job isn't just done. Once you finish the audit, they don't say, see you next year. They're they're part of our cash management process. So we feel very
So it's another
strong.
pair of eyes.
It is, and it's a very strong team that we can reach out to for guidance as well.
Okay, so do you want to move on to the next deficiency? Oh, Mary, I'm sorry.
Just in regarding to all of these deficiencies and comments from the auditor, all the new policies and procedures and staff that have been put into place since things were not really, nobody was really watching what the other hand was doing, have all the comments that they have here in deficiencies, have these been taken care of since the company wrote up this audit and that it's coming to us? Or
it's a yes and no. It's because they're a process. It's a question of spotting them, seeing them, recognizing them, and working on them. So the fact that yes, we can catch up, but it takes once we put the process in place, it still takes the time to catch up. So instead of being 5 months behind, now we try to do 2 to get caught. And once we get caught up, the idea is that we're reconciling within a month or 2 instead of somebody being 5 months behind.
And this must be
which they will
very
catch.
beneficial
It's just
to you.
very hard to
Right,
fix something 5 months ago. It takes an inordinate amount of time to find it and fix it.
Well, it's
when
like
you're 5 months back.
That's what I was saying. We need to be on top of these things so
Right.
we don't get behind.
Think about balancing your checkbook
Oh yeah.
after 5 months. Oh,
Yeah.
we lost Jeff. What happened?
You left, you didn't want to be with us. You did last.
Says connecting
you did
up
a
top.
2-hour connection.
Hang on. Says connecting up there.
Yeah.
I said 4.
The internet's been awful today.
Hang on, I'll get it. So we can move
We
on
lost
to
it
the
at our house like all day.
Oh,
It's connecting. I don't know why it did that.
shoot.
I just got to make sure the meeting
So,
is still going.
It might have been on from 6 to 10 or 6 to 8.
Yeah, did it end? Did the meeting end?
Oh,
Yeah, maybe.
good call.
Oh, Tyler doesn't have any network either.
Uh-oh. Hang on. Let me
I mean
edit.
What's that?
We've got to sign this.
Yeah, well, this is that if it's the internet that
That wasn't a formal.
it can be Verizon. I mean,
It wasn't a
Comcast.
motion.
If
Yeah,
it was, would you
because
second it?
Comcast can be the issue.
Oh, yeah, I don't have internet either.
Yeah, which means it isn't just us. It's
Okay.
probably Comcast.
All right. What's
We'll
plan
keep
B?
letting it load, but you guys, I mean, we can go forward in the sense that you can, I mean, I'm pretty intricately
stream it on
involved
the
in
phone?
this.
Can we call him and just put him on audio?
Oh, I'm connecting, it says, I can try to call him if I have his phone number.
Technical
Do
difficulties.
we have, let me see if we can find him. Let me check
Our
my
live streams are
emails.
open now too.
The problem is, this is probably in a different accountant. Yeah, it's not showing me my side.
And just as a backup plan, is this something we can just walk through the rest and?
Okay.
The whole network's down.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it may not be us.
All right, can we just get him on the phone?
I'm gonna find my audit and find his phone number.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's the connection audit. Jeff. Let me see if this phone number is a cell number.
How much snow are we supposed to?
Hello?
Hey Jeff, this is Andrea. It's an internet thing. I think that Comcast is down. I do have you on the phone though for.
Okay.
Let me turn you all the way up. You'll just have to be very quiet when you're speaking so they can still
And
hear you.
Just, Tyler, you're continuing to record, right? Thumbs up on that. Okay, so just, this will all come out in the recording.
So yeah, it's an internet connection thing.
Okay, so we were on page 6 under town's response.
Unfortunately, because I know you had a big meeting, I wouldn't mind coming in person at another time. Today I just couldn't do it. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. We're still here. We can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's up to you guys. Do you want to just do it?
Schedule.
Or do you want to just do it over the phone?
How would you, what's the
It
preference?
sounds
of
like
the
he
board?
wants to actually reschedule too.
Yeah,
It's
now
like
we're
8
behind
o'clock.
already.
I know, we're behind. We're
Yeah,
also
we
right in the
are.
middle of this.
It's true.
And we knew this was going to be
And
a
the
full-
finance committee'd have to repost too, so.
I mean, I don't mind finishing it, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's just plow through and I think
You wanna move
we're
up
going to
here,
notice a
Lois?
pattern in the deficiency and the response. So can we march through so I think we're done with the first one, and the second one is tax accounts receivable reconciliations.
2021-2.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, 21-2 is very similar to the first one as far as, once again, we found that, the records weren't being reconciled between the tax collector and the accountant's office. I think it was, if you look at the town's response, which is down below, now we don't give an opinion on, or we're not auditing the town's response, but it's very similar that, there were some issues during FY20 that carried forward into 21. Some might have to do with software. Personnel's been changed since then. There were not large variances, but there just weren't controls in place to catch those variances. And I believe at the end of the day, a lot of things were found, but moving forward, it was more, you had to implement those procedures and policies, which it looks like you guys are in the process of doing. So.
Right.
And I can tell you that one of the things, I think one of the large things that was spotted is that, and this was a previous personnel, there was a very unusual process with the, that we had in terms of a pilot which involved, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So it was somebody who paid some taxes under an agreement, and some of the property was therefore assessed at a certain level, like 25%, as opposed to 100% under a tax agreement with them. And there was some debate at one point about, so they had to pay all of it, then we had to rebate it. So there was I know for a fact there was a chunk of money that they did through a process in paying back that through the agreement that kind of somehow was, didn't end up on the books the way the accountant could catch it. It was in the books, we saw it, I mean, a check was issued, it went through a warrant. But it was done in such a way that they couldn't figure out why there was a discrepancy until someone went back and found that payment out and had to adjust that. And that was a big one, that they had to find. And so there wasn't quite the procedures to catch those little things when those unusual things happened. So we changed that process around about how those things are handled on the warrant and through the accountant and cash book side. So
Okay.
that those kinds of things wouldn't just
Fall-
kind of fall through the cracks anymore.
Okay.
So I do know that was for one example of one of the things. And when we realized there wasn't a good process in place, that the accountant was looking for it where they could see it, we made a change.
And the whole goal of an audit is to find these very things, so
Yes.
we can correct them.
Yep.
Okay,
that,
so
that process was
we've
changed.
got the policy and the procedure, and we continue with the same recommendation, which is to make the treasurer collector full-time, right?
I think that's a very strong position that we need to take.
Okay, so I'm just noting the 2 deficiencies, and then we get into current year comments and recommendations. So those are just what they say they are, comments and recommendations,
You
not.
always have comments and recommendations. Jeff could
Good.
probably speak to that. Things that they see and they
Thanks,
just want to make
Jeff.
a comment or recommend something. So
Yeah,
think
so
you alluded
the
to
other
this.
matters, which, are noted in the management letter, there are opportunities to improve the internal control and operating efficiency. So, they're not things that really even have to be written up. They're things that we go over with staff and management during the audit, so they are aware. And some of these are just, hey, things to be aware of. Like the first bullet point on page 8 is a perfect example: to monitor and reconcile the COVID grants. So we're not saying, hey, you've done all these things wrong. It's just the COVID grants, the money that's coming out of the federal government that they're giving you, they're so complex. The rules, I think it's the COVID relief fund and FEMA, what was eligible, they were, at one point, they were telling you different things, on a monthly basis. They were changing some of the designations. So it's very complex, and it's just that we're warning you to just stay up to date. And then the same thing with now, you're getting more into the ARPA. I think, the ARPA funds, and I believe Tom said you guys had, did he say you guys had already elected to use revenue?
Yep.
Yes,
laws?
revenue replacement.
Okay, good. So as long as you've done that, that's going to be one major hurdle. And things like that. That's what we're, saying, just to be aware of those and all the complexity, but not that anything specifically is wrong with them. So.
And as this board knows, we do have a policy and procedure that we follow around ARPA. So that's one of the reasons why, is because of this financial side. Okay, and then police.
And I just wanted to point out
Yep.
that the CARES Act and FEMA grants are closed out, and we're part of the closeout of this fiscal year with DOR. So we had to show those accounts balanced out in our balance sheet this year. And so ARPA is the only one that's actually moving forward into fiscal 23.
Okay. And then we talked about this in the intro, the off-duty accounts, the police grants and the highway grants. Is that covered in pages 8 through 11?
The second bullet point, the police off-duty account?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And that's just, the finding there is that, the police officers work, you bill out, the vendors or usually typically customers, whether it be like a, some type of business, and they reimburse the town. So, basically we found there was approximately $100,000 worth of activity. At the end of the year, there was a deficit balance of $60,000, and there wasn't a clear trail of a receivable outstanding that comes up with that. So we just want to make you aware that, that the policies and procedures around that account need to be looked into, and you may have to raise any deficit that remains. You may have a receivable out there that you're able to collect on that $60,000, and that would reduce the amount. But at some point, you'll have to be aware that we'll have to probably fund that deficit.
So what he's saying is, well, it's not a $60,000. You have to remember that these carry over the fiscal year. So if they do a detail in May for Verizon, and they bill Verizon, and Verizon doesn't pay till July, come June 30th, that's a deficit in that account. Because when you close the books on June 30th and the bill hasn't been paid, obviously there's going to be a deficit until that bill gets paid. So this is one of those receivables that crosses fiscal years. It's not always clean close.
Okay.
What we discovered is that there wasn't a good connection from the billing, which was going out from the police assistant, She would send the bill out, but she wasn't giving the bill to accounting upstairs. So there was always this, so they didn't know exactly what was out. And then when those money were coming in, they weren't always reconciled. So we think there's past money that has been collected. It just was not reconciled properly against this balance. So this isn't to say that this money was never received, but what wasn't happening, and this could be for this, we think it was over years, was that money got received, probably put in the general fund, and yet you had this floating out showing that there was an open bill. So now we've tightened that up. The bills are going from her, she makes a copy goes to the accountant and the treasurer. They know when these things are billed for, they can spot for that check. When the police turn over that check, they now have a copy of the invoice to reconcile that turnover against. Well, what we have to do is we have to ultimately, and we did this last year, if you'll recall, we had a few grant accounts on a small amount, $600 for one or whatever. And we were pretty sure we'd receive the money, but they had the money over years had not properly been put against the right account. DOR doesn't see that. We don't know where that money is, like in the sense it could have been collected 3 years ago, and that money's now closed out. So at some point we're going to draw the line in the sand and say, we've received this much money. There's this balance hanging out there. We need to take the wash, which is at the end of the year, like we did last year. I actually transferred funds from other accounts. Now, it's an accounting thing. Did we never receive the money? No, we're pretty sure we received the money. It just happened prior, and we're carrying this balance from year to year. What we're doing now is establishing what's that true balance. What are we actually carrying year to year, and what we're actually just waiting to get paid on that's more recent. And once we figure that out by when you balance your checkbook, but sometimes you just say, okay, I have to stop here, and I know that I'm off by this. I need to rechange the balance. We need to cover that balance. We'll figure out what that balance is, and my hope is at the end of the year, we'll reconcile that balance. There's multiple ways to do that. You can raise it and appropriate it to cover it. You can transfer it from existing funds that we're no longer going to spend before June 30th. We can put it on the tax recap. Once we have a good sense of what that number is and how much it is, that's the time to pick a strategy and determine how to fund that. But right now we're in the process of, we've changed the procedure so that now we know we can tighten up when the check comes in, that it goes against a bill. Yep. We're not going to carry forward any of this negative, and they can take a while. Some of these vendors don't pay for 90 days. We got to carry that. But we'll at least be able to draw a line in the sand, hopefully, come up with a number, and just get that off our books permanently. Because you can't keep carrying that forward.
Right.
And that's what they're identifying.
Again, this is the whole point of doing an audit, which had not been done since 2000.
And we did the agency accounts last year and closed out all of the back deficit. So that's our hope, to do the same process with the police off-duty accounts this coming year.
Okay, Alex.
So is this meeting being recorded in any way right now?
Yes.
Yep.
So it's still being recorded? Okay. I just, we're talking about some deficiency issues, and then the internet goes off, so it just looks really suspicious. And I know that's probably not the intent here, but it's just like, I already had a resident email me a second ago just saying, like, look, you're talking about issues in this town, and all of a sudden the internet goes off. And so I happen to agree with that person, so just putting that out there.
Well, it's still being recorded for BNC TV.
Okay.
It's still going to be
Also
available.
still broadcasting.
It's broadcasting.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. 'Cause we're not trying to hide anything.
No, and my hope is to put these documents on the website after you guys have had a chance to review and discuss and get any comments from the Finance Committee and all that. I want to make these publicly available, public documents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so similar to other meetings, then we put this on the town website the next day. We can revisit any questions at the December 6th meeting that people have raised. Having been through quite a few audits myself, I'm not seeing anything on here that's going to set my hair on fire. I think they're explained, and I think I'm going to keep coming back to the point that we haven't done an audit since 2012, did you say?
11.
11?
Well,
Okay.
until we did the 19.
Okay, so I'm just going to keep pointing that out, that if we haven't had an audit that long, and this is all, and most of these are resolvable, and we're not seeing major fiscal amounts here.
And when did this, you said we have a new auditor, a new accountant too? When did they start?
Last year, a year ago. So they
Okay.
picked up.
Okay.
They picked up a year ago, January. So they came in during this fiscal year. They were not here for the beginning of it.
Okay.
And they've been working with us to try and catch up on a lot of things. We had back issues from 20 to resolve in order to even do the 21 audit.
Okay, so do we think we can, how much time do we need to get through? We've got like
Don't
one
really
more
have-
page, basically.
Yeah, you don't have much more.
And is the agency funds?
That's the one I was speaking to. And we did do a catch up this year on those. We identified those. And if you'll remember, we actually put through some transfers last year to close out some of these grants that had some balances.
And so this will come up again at the end of the year.
I'd like to do that with the police off duty as well.
Okay.
And catch that up, get it balanced.
Okay,
And then
so-
going forward, we have a clean account.
Excellent. So are we on page 9, number 4, departmental
Yes.
receipt procedures? And this has to do with cash things like?
Turning over cash and checks that get received, everything from building permits to
transfer stickers, things like that?
Dog licenses
Okay.
to departments have small fees and various other licensing.
Yep. Okay. So this looks relatively, did the finance committee have any questions on any of these audit points?
For that one, I just want to say that we, their recommendation was to do a triple logbook. We do have a turnover sheet. It's not that we weren't turning over, and we did do some receipts, but we've tightened up the receipt process. We want them to give numbered receipts. And many of these I've referenced, in this particular case, this is in the policies and procedures book. So we've already implemented doing those receipts. So that's already been done as per our policy in our new policies and procedures.
And again, the policy and procedures were put into place by the select board earlier this year in 2022. And this is from a couple of years before that. Okay. So what else do you want to say about the town's response on this? Other than we've got the procedures in place. It sounds like the key thing among the departments is just making sure whatever is being handled is actually circling back to the accountant. I mean,
well, they were doing turnover. The question is, they just want a tighter internal control.
Okay.
They just want you to have pre-numbered receipt books. We don't deal a lot with cash, so cash, you know, I mean, we can take it here in the town hall. They don't take it at the transfer station, those kinds of things. So we do have, you know, some tight controls on cash.
Oh, excellent.
But it's always good to have a receipt even for checks. And then we have a receipt, the turnover sheet denotes cash or check and what's turned over. But, you know, if you don't have a receipt logbook that you can attach to these things, cash doesn't have to show up on your turnover if somebody doesn't want to put it there. We don't believe that's ever happened. They're not finding that. It's just they're saying as a double check, you should be issuing those receipts, and those receipts should then be attached. Regardless of whether the person wants a receipt, you should be writing them out in the receipt book and then attaching them through the process.
Now, are we actually signing off or accepting the report? Is that what we need to do on this? I'm just wondering if, like in the other areas, if that's something we should move forward to December 6th. Page 11.
It's not really, I mean, it's up to you. It's not really a formal thing. It's not necessarily going to change, but you know, I didn't know that you guys just want to accept it, and I don't know if the finance committee has any more questions on any of these.
Well, I'm concerned about, you know, a couple of things. May not be fit right into what we're talking about. But I'm concerned, the finance committee is concerned about when we set a budget, and that is for the following fiscal year. And then we find that there are positions that need more money, or you hire somebody else, it puts us on the spot as to where is the money coming from. I think that needs to be uppermost in everybody's mind, that we do budgets annually. And then, for whatever reason, you get, requests that this position is worth more, or this or that, and grant it. And then, where is the money coming from? And another thing I noticed, we have a balance sheet here. We used to get balance sheets that would show gift accounts and that sort of thing. And that's helpful to know. Fire department would have a gift account. Council on Aging had a gift account, things like that. We'd like to know the status of that sort of thing. And the other thing I want to mention is, again, not showing up perhaps in an audit, is excess levy capacity. I don't know whether they've acknowledged something like that or not, but I'm not sure that everybody understands excess levy capacity. Excuse me. That is not free money. It's going to cost the taxpayers, and that's okay. If that's the way we want to present it to the taxpayers, it saves from going for an override, but it still means that the taxpayers are paying for it. And I think all of us have been very concerned about taxes and where the taxes are going.
Right, so
that's all.
I'm going to take an approach to the rest of the agenda, which is, so Lois, I just want to note what you said. So one, the Finance Committee concerns have to do with positions and making sure the Select Board identifies and knows where the money, if a position is changing, that we identify and we identify where the money is coming from and if there's a change, and making sure that we share that. The second thing was gift accounts for fire.
Do we want to let Jeff go if you don't have any questions for him?
Yes, so let me just get to that. So because these are not part of the audit, but I want to recognize that they're important and that we should come back to them. So I think we should let Jeff go. I think we should make a note for the minutes with the Finance Committee, because we could easily do another joint committee, or we can just take these concerns into the future Finance Committee meeting or a Select Board meeting, is talk about the positions, the gift accounts, and the excess levy capacity.
Right. And I just do want to say one thing to that.
So I'm trying to reel the agenda back in.
No, I'm going back.
Okay.
My question is concerning the audit.
Yeah.
The question is, I think that myself as a member, I'm not of the Finance Committee, I feel strongly that, and I think the Select Board should be on board, that we should continue to have audits every single year. We had complained on the Finance Committee for many years of the lack of audits, especially in a long period of time, because we're concerned that just opens the door to a potential problem, and we won't be even aware of it. That may happen until we finally decided to do an audit, only because the emergency services building was coming up about the issue of bonding, which would require us to have an audit. I believe that we should have an audit every single year. That instills confidence amongst our boards and also instills confidence from the taxpayers that they realize we are doing not only our due diligence, but we're double checking to make sure. That builds confidence amongst our residents.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I know they mentioned about the police detail. I just want to let you know, I was involved in the issue of police details in another community where I worked. The issues that they're bringing up here, some of them are similar in many communities. This is not just, I just want the residents to think, it's not just Northfield. We had issues with vendors not paying their bills, or vendors changing the rules of the game to avoid paying the bills. But we also had the responsibility, the town had to pay the police officers for their details. So obviously sometimes there were deficits and sometimes there were uncollectibles. But the thing is, though, this is not just a strictly Northfield problem. This exists in other communities, so I just wanted to get that out on that issue.
Thank you, Bernie, that's
But
helpful.
everything else, I have no questions. I'm thankful for the audits. Yeah, the Scanlon Associates is a reputable firm. It does an excellent job. I'm aware, just like I said, they work for a community that I reside before, and I'm glad we're having it done.
Right, and I agree with Bernie about doing it annually. That was our intent. The last one for 20 was a fluke. We had a lot of changeover, and it was recommended by the auditor that we resolve that and do the 21. But I would like to see us roll the audit article into the budget and just fund that. We do it every year now. It's already in our budget. Rather than doing it as an article and having to vote it each year, we just need to roll it into the operating budget.
I agree.
And
Okay.
it's an annual process.
Okay. So
I'm sure Jeff would not see a problem with that.
no. So I appreciate Jeff and Jeff spending a lot of time with us and listening to a lot going on in Northfield, as well as doing the audit. I think given the fact that one has not been done, to your point, Bernie, it's just good practice, right?
Yeah.
It's just good practice. Corporations do it, we do it.
Yep.
Everyone benefits from having a second pair of eyes. So now that we've done it, we have a great firm working for us. We've come up with a few basic things, many of which look to be not just a Northfield thing, like ARPA and FEMA grants and Chapter 90, things like that. The other things with what Lois mentioned, I think we should address separately because it's not audit, but I just want Lois and the Finance Committee to know that we take your concerns seriously, and we're going to put those in the minutes and we'll come back to those. So I'll take responsibility for figuring out which agenda and how to do it. So I don't think we need a vote on anything, right?
No, it's more just getting this to you so that you
Right.
all recognize and accept that you have it. Because
Yep.
once you kind of are all aware of it and it's out there, then we do have to send this to the state, just so everybody knows these
Yep.
are available. The state gets our audit every time we do one.
Yep.
They are on file with the state, so.
Okay, so I'd like to close this subject, if it's okay, by just saying that we, speaking for the room, we agree that we should be doing audits every year, and we, as a result, we're going to recommend that we roll that into the budget, as opposed to doing it as a town meeting article. Okay, great.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone. So the Finance Committee, do you want to close out?
Thank you,
your
Jeff. I'm going to let
meeting?
you go.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for
Good
the
night.
interruption. Bye.
That's not your fault. Bye.
We're going to continue our meeting.
They're going to cross the hall.
Oh, okay, great.
But I just want to remind everybody, Selectboard and Finance Committee as well, about the meeting on the 28th in Bernardston.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And that is really a report and discussion from the committee that's studying regionalization between Pioneer and the Montague school system.
Yep.
And so they are willing to give, they asked if they could come and give a presentation. It will be at the Bernardston Senior Center at 6:30 on the 28th of this month. And I hope you can all attend.
I know.
It'll be similar to the 4-town meetings that we have had in the past.
We,
So it's all 4 towns.
we all received the invitation, just FYI, from the, is it Jane?
Jane Dutcher.
From
is
the
chair.
Bernardston Finance Committee.
She's
So
my counterpart in Bernardston.
yes, and Andrea sent out calendar invites to the entire select board, so I know it's on my calendar. Yep, it's important.
She's going to send, I talked to her just at 5 o'clock tonight. She's going to, when she draws up an agenda, she's going to send it to us. So I'll be sure that you get it
Thank you.
ahead of time.
Thank you. It is important. And I do really appreciate the Finance Committee spending this much time on all of these issues. And I just want to note that I think we're kicking off, despite all this hard work and time in one meeting, I think we're kicking off the finance year and cycle well, the budget cycle well. And I look forward to what transpires over the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll be in touch with you, Lois. We can get you any report set up that you want from Erin.
Yeah, well,
we can issue those.
we'll come back to that just to make sure her concerns are addressed.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for sticking it out.
Dan left his jacket?
Left his jacket.
Oh, we'll put it in his office.
Okay. Let's move on to warrants, please. So can I get a motion to approve the payroll warrant of $69,898.13
So-
from November 18th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Motion and a second.
All in.
All those. Ooh, look at you, girl.
Insubordination.
Am I not moving fast enough?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
She's just so used to
She's
hearing
practicing. Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. And then, Alex, do you want to make a motion
Yeah.
for the vendor warrant,
I'll
please?
read
Because
that.
it's a biggie.
Make a motion to approve the November 18th, 2022 vendor warrant of $521,559.86. Big amount. I'm not used to seeing this too much. This is for highway bridges and rails, health insurance, ARPA cruiser laptops that we put forward, the sewer muffin monster, Northfield and Warwick Road Mass Works grant, and the lightning strike receipts.
Second.
Excellent. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to minutes from November 1st, 2022.
Did you mention the amount in that motion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed
Yeah,
that.
he did.
Somehow,
Oh,
I,
yes.
somehow I heard you do the thing and I was waiting for the amount. And I
I did
missed
it
it
in the
up
beginning.
front.
Yep.
There you go. Phew. Okay.
It's too late in the night.
All right, guys.
Minutes looked good to me. I skimmed over them in the beginning.
I just had two. So before we do the motion, it's a Kubota tractor, not a Kubota. Is Kubota, Kubota typo? Huh? What did you say? Kubota, Kubota.
Sounds like Kubota.
Yeah, but it's Kubota. And then on page 3, where we said leaves a limited area for everything else, where it says Select Board advised Spencer to bring the request back to Solfest for more detailed information, bus parking, stage sizes, seating area, venue tent location, etc. Where it says leaves a limited area for everything else, what I was saying there was it leaves a limited area for the number of people spaced appropriately. Right, and that's our key question, is on avoiding crowding, unnecessary crowding, and making sure there's enough space. Well, that they document what that is. Okay, those were the only, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes from November 1st, 2022 with the suggested corrections?
So moved.
Motion and a
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. No interim select board meetings. Meetings and attends, events attended by select board members. Bernie?
Nothing.
Mary?
I went to the holiday fairs at the Trinitarian and St. Patrick's Church. I couldn't wait for them every year, and they did not disappoint.
Out
It
and
was
about in the
awesome
community.
to be donating money with little trinkets from
Excellent.
and baked goods. And,
Excellent.
yeah, I loved it.
Okay. Heath?
I didn't have anything.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I had First Light FERC stakeholder and settlement meetings, plural. As usual, I do the select board agenda with the town administrator and town secretary, and the town administrator and I and the police chief met yesterday to talk about the budget cycle and strategic personnel planning as we move through the budget cycle. Oh, and I was at you and I were both ended up going to the fire the other night, so I'm just going to report that I got a good overview of how closely and carefully all of our emergency departments work together.
Indeed.
And it was really interesting to see the activity on one side of the yellow tape and on the other side of the yellow tape and how that works. And many of our firefighters and part-time police officers have other jobs. So folks were on site until about, I think, 3 a.m. or so, and then get up and go to,
their jobs.
Maybe they don't sleep, and then they just go to their jobs at 7 a.m. or 4 a.m. or whatever. So just really want the community to realize how hard these people work on behalf of Northfield in keeping us safe. Okay, Alex, did you have meetings?
Nothing for me.
Okay, town administrators update.
Okay, first update, Grandin Water District. Here is the signed
Oh, that's right.
bill.
Yay.
So the water district is established on paper. It hasn't been established yet in practice. In fact, we have a meeting with the attorney tomorrow and the pre-commissioners to talk about timeline and how that's all going to work. But there's no, it doesn't exist as a functioning.
What's that called, Andrea?
This year?
Yeah.
It's a bill. It's a law. The
Okay,
governor signed
yeah.
into law the establishment of the Grandin
The
Water
new water
District.
district is.
So it exists on
Charlie
paper.
Baker
It's a
signed
little
it.
empty shell, but it will hopefully become a functioning district as we move forward in the process.
What an
We do have a
important
meeting
step.
with DEP this Thursday with the water district. Alex, Tim, and Peter are the board of directors at the moment, soon to be commissioners as soon as that moves forward. With our town attorney, myself, Dennis McCarthy, who's the Vice President of Finance from Thomas Aquinas College, and Perno Rao, who's the RCAP Solution gentleman, and then from the East Northfield Water Company, Donald Glaskoff, their lawyer for their entity, and Paula Carr, the administrative assistant. The lawyer is Eric Krathwohl from Rich and May and PC. And NMH will be present, Mary McInerney, their head of finance from the NMH, and Mark Crest, the attorney for NMH. All of us will be meeting with DEP. The overall purpose of the meeting is to establish cooperative framework for the transition to the district with full regulatory support and adequate financing. So that's the goal of the beginning of that meeting. So that will happen this coming Thursday in Springfield, either via Zoom, you can Zoom in, or down in DEP's office. So that's the next step we're undertaking right now.
Wow.
Update on Comcast. I'm hoping that I'm told them we are signing the agreement on your next meeting, December 6th. Come hell or high water.
That was on.
December 6th.
Yep.
And so
on
I
our
have
list.
we have a draft right now of the license from Comcast that our lawyer is looking over, and our lawyer has the final agreements for the build out. I mean, their lawyer has the final agreements for the build out that they're looking over, and then hopefully we're going to be on the same page with both of the final language. And it's my hope that you'll be signing that agreement at your next meeting, and we'll be done with that negotiation.
At December 6th, we'll sign it at the December 6th meeting.
That's what my hope is.
Okay.
That's our next select board meeting?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
You have a few weeks off now.
Yep.
For the
Technically the
holiday.
28th.
Yes. Thank you, Heath.
Embarrassing.
That's different.
The work never stops.
But your meeting, tax rate. We did do the balance sheet. That got submitted, approved by DOR, and the tax rate has been certified and set. Last year, the tax rate was $13.85. This year, it's $13.58, down 27 cents per thousand.
That's very good.
And yeah, it's a good thing because.
Say that again. It went from what to what?
This confused the heck out of me. It went
Yeah.
from $13.85 to $13.58. Just swap the two digits at the
Oh,
end.
okay, all right.
So it went down 27 cents per thousand. So that's been certified for fiscal 23. The codification, done, finished, posted on the website. You can find it in two places. There's a gold bar when you first go on the front page of the website. You go down to the next to last bar and click on it. That's the town bylaws. All the town bylaws, general, zoning, all that, it's codified. Or if you go on the planning board page looking for the zoning bylaws, there's also a link there.
Did you have a clarification?
Oh, there's another one. There's a third one.
I put it on the zoning page.
Yeah.
So people, if they're looking for zoning bylaws, would
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
okay.
So
yeah.
it is on there.
go to the zoning.
I urge you to take a look at it. I mean, it's a code now. It's an interesting
It's right
document.
on the homepage.
Yeah, it's right
And
on the homepage.
It's searchable too, so once you get in there, you can look for whatever you're interested
Correct,
in,
which
e.g.
never was
noise.
before. So
Okay.
that is up, it is on, and that project, with that project. The lightning
Check.
strike / insurance, I brought numbers because Alex always likes to see numbers.
Yeah.
Pass those around. I sent in the last 2 invoices for BNC TV for a
Oh.
camera and Johnson Controls for the fire alarm that I believe we're going to have because I believe
Thank
we
you.
are done. We have been paid for everything else and all of those things were submitted
sir.
in the last warrant. That's why you had lightning strike payments in the last
Oh,
warrant.
yep.
Once we got the money, I submitted all of those, so they will all be paid this week, except for the 2 outstanding invoices which have been sent to the insurance company. All of that to be told, the amount was $29,870.75, of which the town will have a deductible of $1,000.
Oh, that's
So we will have to establish where that will be transferred from at some point, but I think I will have money in the insurance line to just take it from our insurance line. And so we have been covered for $28,870.75 worth of work, and you can see all the bills and all the things that had to be replaced. It was quite a road, but I think we can say, knock on wood, I don't know, there's no wood, that we are
Or
done.
knock on a lightning rod.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we are done with that, and so.
Great work.
Yeah.
So,
And thanks again to BNC TV.
Uh-huh.
so, that is me.
Thank you. Okay, business, emergency services facility committee update and next steps. So the update is, Andrea, were there specific things that?
Well, a couple of things. One is, just to give you an update on where we are, the A&R plot plan for the new parcel was approved by the planning board, so that is done. That was taking the large parcel and splitting it into 2. And so, although it's an approval not required, it goes before the planning board and they do sign that. The document is signed. And the select board has to sign the acceptance documents for the closing. You're going to talk about that below because that's an unanticipated 48-hour, and we'll explain it when we get there.
Yep.
But that will be essentially the documents for the deed. So those things have been done or are in process, will be done as of tonight towards the closing, which we're still aiming for on November 30th. And that's why we need to get the document signed. There are 2 meetings. Emergency Services Facility Committee is meeting Monday, November 21st at 6 o'clock. That is already posted. We've also posted a meeting for December 12th, although that agenda could end up being updated based on the meeting of this. But both of those meetings have been posted on the website. And those are the next 2 meetings to really talk about what's happening with the design, where the concept designer is, and the next steps. I know that they have been in touch with the Conservation Commission. I know that they have been in touch.
With the Historical Commission too.
So they've been in touch. They've been starting to reach out to the various committees.
Yep.
To start the process for all the different pieces they're going to need. They're going to need a variance from the ZBA. So they're beginning those steps now that they will have a design and enough data towards whatever the boards need. Each board has different requirements based on what permit or special permit or permissions they're being asked for. So that's what they're working on now. And we'll get an update on that at the meeting on the 21st, where they are on the plans.
And all of those, just FYI for those watching, all of those were outlined in the presentation that we did at the October 17th.
Right, so we'll be starting the additional
which
wetlands
is on the town website.
Test pits, the much more in-depth work is going to start now and move forward. One of the things that's been discussed at both the committee level there and I think by this board as well was to talk about designing a working group. You've had a rather large committee going forward to weigh in on all sorts of things, certainly to get the design up and running and making sure it met the needs of a lot of entities, and whether you want to turn that group into a more nimble group that's going to meet more regularly. Ultimately, someone from that group might be the touch point to go to weekly meetings once you start construction and back. The reason they say that is it's a fairly large committee, so getting a quorum to be able to continue now to move pretty quickly through the design process is going to become increasingly difficult. And you have members who have contributed to the function and design who may not, now that that piece is done, may not care whether you're, moving this here or putting that there or seeing what the elevations are from the geotech or whatever. But the committee could run into problems if you're going to have meetings. I mean, we already have November 21st and December 12th, and that committee has 10 or 11 members. I mean, you've got to constantly be getting
Quorum.
6 or 7 people to a meeting, and it gets increasingly difficult for that to happen, especially as sort of the meat of the work has kind of been done to this point. All of this still goes through public process. It still goes to all the committees. It's still going to go to town meeting. None of this is to be done, but you're going to need a committee that's going to be able to meet fairly frequently and turn around. I don't know what that looks like, but it's something to think about on who the representatives might be. I don't know whether that means reaching out to the current representatives and kind of taking a poll, or I think discussing it at this meeting to begin with, the next meeting. But I just wanted to put out there that I think that it's something worth considering, that this committee might need to now morph into the next phase.
Something smaller and more nimble, and might have different, which we've talked about before, might have different representation, or additional representation, I should say, not different, but.
Well, the needs have changed onto who you might need in the committee now that you're moving into a final design, function design, and building phase.
And what the skill set is of who would
different
be,
committees.
yeah.
So how's that process happen within the committee itself, or it's something we got to do?
You will ultimately have to do it. I think the committee should talk, discuss that, and maybe hopefully make a recommendation directly to the select board on what you think that should look like. I don't think the select board wants to step on anyone's toes, but at the same time, there may be people who'll be relieved to say, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to be going to these meetings every 2 to 3 weeks.
Or more frequently.
Well, eventually,
right,
but I think
progress.
ultimately what happens when they start doing like the weekly construction things way down the road when you're in construction, one person from that group will represent that, and then because you just can't you won't be able to meet weekly to make decisions. That person will be given some kind of authority to do some of the decision making, because you'll meet every Thursday with the contractor, the OPM, and certain things when you're building anything have to be made. You can't call a committee, you can't wait a week, things will start to speed up where it's going to become increasingly difficult to have a large body of 12 people and get 7 of them in a room to get something decided that some of them may not have any, doesn't really appeal to anything they've been interested in the process thus far.
So is this on the agenda then for November 21st?
I don't think it is.
Formation of a design working group is on the agenda. It's 4B.
Okay.
So just wanted to alert you guys to that. I think that's part of the update, is that they may be coming back to you with a suggestion on how to change the formation of that committee.
So we'll tackle that and make some sort of decision, it sounds like, at December 6th.
Yes.
Potentially.
I think that's
depending on what comes out of the November 21st
hopefully we'll be able to tackle
meeting.
that, because that's going to keep moving forward. So that's where we are, and not a lot has happened, but in terms of the public sphere, now it's been going on with the designer and getting to the phase we knew that was coming.
Yep.
That we'll be moving forward again.
Okay, so we'll put this. We'll come back to this. All right. Declare highway surplus equipment.
You've got a list in your.
I have a short list. I did talk to Tom about it. I didn't want Tom to have to sit through this meeting. He's coming and doing an update on a variety of subjects at our next meeting. So we've got a list here, and it's important to him that we declare it surplus equipment so he can move it off to auction. And this is equipment he's no longer using, and by getting it to auction, that gets money back into the town.
Mm-hmm. And he does this periodically. We've
done it before.
I think they go through, especially now, I think they're cleaning out for winter and tuning up their equipment. And what they'll do is recognize the equipment that they've either replaced or is just obsolete. And it goes through an auction process. That's a legitimate public procurement process that we're allowed to sell on. And that money goes into the general fund. We use an independent auction.
No golf cart for snow blower for sale though, maybe.
Yeah, it's.
Is that a small one?
I have no
Yep.
idea.
Something I can handle?
You can go to Auctions International as soon as it's posted and bid on it.
Okay, so any questions on that, or do we just take a motion to declare it as highway? You've got it? Okay, great.
This time I will declare highway surplus equipment surplus for the town of Northfield. 4 1,000-gallon plastic tanks and piping, 1 Power America steam cleaner, 1 sweeper attachment, 1 2007 Ford F450 truck with plow, 1 MT5 brush hog, 1 2005 MT trackless, 1 snowblower, 1 broom, 1 power angle plow, 1 500-gallon water tank, 2 pair steel ramps, 1 gas-powered generator, 1 Joneser
Compressor.
chainsaw.
Oh, compressor.
Sorry, compressor.
Whoops.
1 Makita backpack blower, and 2 mount pistons.
Motion and
Second.
a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And 2 turtle doves.
Yes. Thank you, Tom
Partridge in a
Walker.
pear
Okay. Now, and the other thing that we need in this department is cemetery closing. And so,
We just do this an annual vote.
I think it's in your thing.
yep.
I make a motion?
The cemetery closing first, right? And then we'll do the snow and the bands, right?
Which I think are written down there.
Yeah, vote to close. Okay, so can we get a motion to,
What's the date on the closing of the cemeteries?
it's on the
December
orange sheet.
1st.
Got it.
Effective
Okay.
December 1st to April 15th. I motion that we vote, right?
Yep.
To close the town cemeteries effective December 1st, 2022 to April 15th, 2023, weather permitting.
Motion and a
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Now we have winter regs and overnight parking bans. So that's more an announcement because these are already, okay. Shall I read it? Okay.
Shan't you?
I shall. Okay, snow on town streets. This was a regulation adopted at a select board meeting of December 20th, 1977, amended by the select board on December 16th, 2019. No person shall throw or cause to be thrown or put any snow or ice from any privately owned property onto any street, land, alley, or another person's property in the town. Penalty for violation of this regulation will be $25 for each offense. Okay, and all-night parking ban in the winter. This regulation was adopted by the Select Board on December 23rd, 1980, and amended by the Select Board on December 14th, 2004. Any vehicles left unattended beginning December 1st and ending April 30th between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. on town highways will be towed at the owner's expense. Let's see, snow and ice removal on sidewalks. This was a bylaw voted at a special town meeting on June 25th, 1997, Article 19. Snow and ice shall be removed from sidewalks within the boundaries of the town of Northfield on the streets named as follows: Main Street, Holton Street, Parker Ave, Highland Ave, and Mount Herman Station Road, from West Northfield Road north to the Vermont line, by the owner of land abutting upon said named streets within 48 hours following the cessation of a snow/ice storm by mechanical or other means.
A bylaw you may have to revoke in May.
That's right, with the new responsibilities.
So we will be talking about the sidewalk inventory and what we're going to be doing on December 6th. Just timely given the snow forecast. Okay.
I have to go to work, so I gotta go.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. We'll
Not
miss
much
you.
more. Won't miss much.
We're just almost
I'll
there.
make the other motions, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex is going to need to
There
sign
you go,
something
Mary.
now.
Good for you.
Can I sign it in the morning?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be in the morning.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll have it for you.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay.
Okay.
Stay warm.
Topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Deed acceptance. So we're going to have 2 votes here.
I vote.
Do you want me to just give you a brief? I'll tell you just very briefly.
Yes.
These are the documents that you need to execute
We were just
for the
talking
closing. And the first one that she has here, you don't sign that. That's the quit claim deed that Ed Snow is actually going to sign, but we consent it. And so he will be signing that. And then there's Exhibit A. Basically, what you're voting to do is accept that from him, and then vote to sign the acceptance. And you'll see the motion as to why you're doing that.
Okay.
Right.
All righty. So the first one, Mary, do you want to take that?
Deed acceptance. Well, I vote to execute the deed acceptance from NGC Realty LLC for property located at Main Street and Dickinson Street, Northfield, pursuant to the vote taken under Article 23 of the 2022 annual town meeting.
Motion.
Second.
And a second.
So this is to sign the document you have in front of you.
This one.
Correct.
Yep.
There's a page that you will all sign.
Yep.
The second one I'm asking if you would consider, because I am not anticipating, but we do not know if you might receive any other documents before November 30th in order to execute this,
the closing.
The closing, and you don't meet again before that. So I'm recommending that you take a vote to allow B to sign any documents to effectuate that. So that's the second vote.
Okay, so
Bernie?
I motion that we vote to allow the chair to sign any other documents necessary for the closing on the NGC Realty LLC property located at Main Street and Dickinson Street, Northfield.
Motion and a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, and we're passing around the quit claim deed NG Snow remove parking ban declaration. Okay, citizens' concerns. Thank you. We have none for tonight. November, I'm just going to remind though that November 22nd, if anyone had any comments, written comments about our last meeting with the Moody Center regarding Soul Fest, those are due in the Selectboard office with the town secretary or town administrator by November 22nd. Correspondence, there was none. Were none. Committee board appointments, there are none. We'll have a bunch at the end of December to do reappointments. Proposed agenda items.
Just to jump on what you were just saying about November 22nd and the comments.
Yes.
In our meeting and afterwards, I took a bunch of screenshots of the current setup for the Soul Fest stuff. How can I get that to everybody without breaking the law?
Send it to me.
Okay.
Because it can then be included in the packet when
Just
it's
a bunch of
sent out.
pictures, and if I'll just it'll be all cropped, however you want to do it. But it just basically just shows their little map and then some satellite photos of the events and how big their stage was with all the people that were there. So just
that'd be
when we're making our
excellent.
decision, I've got all what it looks like elsewhere and what we can expect.
We can figure out how to include that in your meeting material
Okay.
if you send it to me.
Excellent.
Okay,
I have
so-
an agenda.
Yes.
Is it possible that we can talk about, I guess after we get a design working group for the new emergency facility, I would like to organize a town field trip to the site, to the proposed site, so that the citizens can see physically with somebody of knowledge, and they can ask questions like, where is it going to go? What's coming out the front? Are the swamp's not involved? Oh, okay.
That's a great
And
idea.
so it's just a day out. It's an hour, and the citizens can sign up to come or just meet there. And there will be a representative with knowledge, so that wouldn't be me. It would, right? Somebody who knows exactly.
I'm generating the
Skip,
idea.
I don't know.
I get
John
it.
Hall, whatever.
Tony Deluzio.
Yeah, Tony, exactly. And so I proposed I would like to talk about that, and is that an agenda item, or is that just something?
The reason why I'm not hesitant, I think it's a great idea. I think it should be discussed at their meeting, because all of the people that would need to do it would be on the committee already.
Okay.
So maybe Heath can, as our
Thanks, Heath.
representative, can
Okay.
take it to their meeting and then report back.
Okay, great.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that's
Okay,
it.
good, nice, great. Okay, Bernie, did you have any? I'll just briefly tell you what I've got if you don't.
Just, I remember I mentioned adding a couple addendums. I think I sent you an email.
Yep.
And that was it.
Yep. So for December 6th, we want to circle back on, to some extent, the Soul Fest discussion with the Moody Center. Now that we've had time to process exactly, and also see what we have for citizen input, as well as Bernie has a couple of suggestions for the procedure, the wording within the policy. So
that's great.
Yeah,
I've seen them. I have some comments to you as well.
Yeah. So if you could work that out with just on how it would be presented and where it best fits in the policy, and then bring it in, that would be great. I don't want you to think it's on there, but we couldn't. There's no way we could do any of that tonight. Tom Walker will be doing an update for us. We'll be talking about road and speed limit inventory. We're going to combine quite a few topics, as well as the sidewalk inventory. What's that?
Just letting her read what I'm writing out of the committee.
Oh, okay. And at some point, we're going to do the select board priority list.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And we'll circle back on the design working group, whatever you get out of there, and what we need to do as a select board to morph the committee, reorganize, whatever. I'm going to leave it in your hands, but I just want to let you know I've got it on December 6th. And I think that was...
What's on December 6th?
Highway update, several things on that.
Oh, for that meeting, okay.
Yep, for December 6th. And then whatever comes out of the design working group discussion from the public safety facility committee, because we might need to vote on if you're changing the committee or establishing something else, recommending. As well as how do we want to carry on or close the discussion from our prior meeting regarding Soul Fest.
Right.
Follow up. That's what I had. Follow up on Soul Fest, Moody Center policy. I'll continue to give you a heads up because this is where I've spent a lot of time, including today, is First Light and possible settlement. I'm going to somehow have to fit this in, give you guys an update. And the last time we did this, we did both executive session and then came into public session, so I'm not sure how this is going to work. So that's weighing heavily at the moment. And I think that's about it.
Yeah,
Did you have anything else?
I can't remember. I have a list, but I think
We have an ongoing list.
we
That's
push
why we
things to
meet
the next meeting.
every other week.
I have about 2 or 3 meetings forward, but I think you covered most of that.
Okay. And again, I know this was a tough night. This was a lot of stuff, but it was super duper important to get that out of the way.
Glad you pushed through the audit.
Yeah, I'm glad everybody pushed.
Rescheduling,
We did it
which I
last.
wanted to do.
Well, we did it last time, and I don't think you guys have been used to meeting with the auditor, and we want to keep that process going forward annually.
Yep, and
Transparency.
also, connecting with the finance committee, the school committee, the superintendent. These are regular practices that we had, by the way, on our select board priority list. So we are actually fulfilling. When we get around to talking about the select board priorities, I'm going to be showing a lot of checks.
Yay.
Which is what I live for. So, announcements. School committee, Northfield has a vacancy on the school committee because there's 3 representatives from Northfield to the school committee. There are 2 who just recently got elected, and there's 1. And for folks who are interested in that, they need to contact Nathan Latoile, who's the town moderator, because he appoints people to the school committee.
Isn't there 9 vacancies?
But across the other towns, we only have 1 in
Okay,
Northfield.
okay.
So their town moderators will have some work cut out for them.
Easy.
Yeah.
Get involved.
Okay. Recognition for service, shout outs.
Well,
Fire department.
Mhm.
Big one for the fire department for what turned out to be a deadly fire,
Yep.
and them keeping everybody safe and the homes nearby safe and making sure everything that was going on was contained to where it was, and they did a phenomenal job as always.
And I'm going to add to that EMS, police, and the highway department. 'cause
Oh, I was going to add.
they were all
that was
involved.
Going to be mine because Tom Walker was right on it all around.
Yep.
Making sure roads were clear. I was
Yep.
double parked. He got me out of there right quick. And, you know, he was Tommy Walker. That was my shout out.
And I want to take a couple of the part-time officers who were called in and who responded.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't have to, and they came in.
And these
Especially
are
two of them that had very early morning.
like 4 a.m. and 7 a.m.
And then
Yeah.
it was Ben
Welcome, John
and
Cowan.
John Cowan.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Oleg was on duty already, but
Yep.
those two gentlemen came in at the chief's call to help. And
Yeah.
Yes.
at very early mornings themselves. So it
And
was
I know
very
they like
busy.
to stay under the radar, but it was good to see them in action and to see how
it's
closely
incredible.
everybody works.
We're putting them on the radar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we are putting them on the
definitely.
radar. So there you go, Ben.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to John Hall because the follow up, we just met with him yesterday, but he and, remember we have a mental health clinician? He and Leanne went around to all the neighbors on Monday and handed out business cards and made sure that any of the neighbors who might need some help or somebody to talk to, that they have Leanne's business card and they can reach out to her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I just have one more shout out.
yeah,
when you're ready.
go ahead.
My shout out is to you, B.
Oh.
Because you got out of your house the night of that fire, and it was late and it was cold, and you went down to that fire and you stayed with the families of the people involved, and you held their hands, B. You didn't just represent the town like we're all with you, but just the goodness of your heart to stand with them and know that they were not alone was brilliant and beautiful of you, B. So a shout out to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think like all of you are doing is just really trying to get out into the community and also see how all of our departments are working. Like I want to see that firsthand, and I want to know about emergencies before we actually have to do anything in an emergency. I just needed to stay out of the way.
Me too. They were like, back behind the hose.
Watch where you step and watch out for the hose.
Yeah.
Exactly. And EMS
God
should
bless
be
that family.
EMS should be Becca. Poor Becca is just basically hanging out, waiting for the all clear, making sure nobody's hurt. So shout out to her. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Thanks all.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, Lois. Good night.